These people always.
You fucked up. I mean, that's what's been.
We're just gonna give it a couple more minutes before we get started.
I just had blood work.
Okay.
All's good.
Okay.
But I did have.
So then I will go ahead and call to order the April 17th meeting of the Town of Frisco Planning Commission. Who does take roll? Kimmy, Chris? Who takes roll today?
You want me to?
Yeah, I'm trying to get it down.
Actually, I have it right here, sorry.
Okay.
Andy Stabile,
Here.
Ira Tain,
Here.
Scythe,
Here.
Candace Day.
Here.
April Connolly,
Here.
Lena Lesmus, I believe is absent. And Kelsey Withrow is not present yet.
Great, thank you. So the minutes from the last meeting had been distributed. Does anybody have any comments on those minutes? Show all in favor of approving the minutes as written?
Aye.
Aye. All right. There. Hi, Kelsey. Okay, so then we will go ahead. First thing we'll do is open up to public comment. Anybody that's here to talk about something that's not on tonight's agenda, this is your opportunity to speak. If you have something to say about an agenda item, you'll get a chance in a few minutes. Is there anyone here that has anything to say about something not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none. Seeing none online. Okay, and we will close out public comment section portion of the meeting, and we'll move on to our first agenda item, planning file number MAJ 250003, sketch plan review of the major site plan application for a proposed remodel of a commercial property consisting of one fast food restaurant located at 960 North 10 Mile Drive, Lot R1, Block 1, Lake Point at Frisco subdivision, resub L2, Block 1 amended. Applicant Robert Palmer, representing First Bank of Silverthorne. And Emma, I think this is yours. Take it away.
Thanks, Sam. So today we're reviewing a proposal to remodel a commercial property into a fast food restaurant. This review focuses on the sketch plan, which is an early design phase, allowing the Planning Commission to provide feedback before the final major site plan application. And as a reminder, there's no vote on a sketch plan. Next. All right, so the applicant is proposing to remodel the property formerly used as a bank into a McDonald's fast food restaurant. The application materials show that the applicant proposes to reuse the existing building and most of the building exterior, remove the bank drive-through tellers and canopy, add 3 drive-through windows on the south facade to serve a new drive-through lane, rebuild portions of the existing parking lot and revise it to a one-way traffic flow, add a patio seating area, and renovate the interior. Staff notes that town code currently only allows for 1 menu board sign. So the Planning Commission is going to be considering a code amendment at an upcoming meeting to amend the sign code to allow for more than 1 menu board to accommodate more than 1 drive-through lane. But you'll be discussing that at a later time. So the proposed project is in stage 3 of the Lake Point PUD. Drive-in restaurants are permitted use in stage 3 of the PUD. The application meets the PUD requirements for building coverage, setbacks, open space, and building height. And the proposed project is in compliance with the Frisco Community Plan, as was referenced in your staff report. The application is meeting requirements for snow storage, and the drainage plan, erosion control, outdoor lighting, and refuse management are going to be reviewed more fully at the final review when we get some additional information. For access, the applicant is proposing one-way counterclockwise traffic circulation through the site by entering through that north driveway and exiting the south driveway. Comments from the town engineer and recommendations in the traffic study indicated that site distances will need to be checked at the south driveway and 10 Mile Drive intersection with the proposed landscaping that's in that bottom right corner. So that will be done at final review. A CDOT access permit will need to be obtained. So the town is going to work with the applicant to make sure that that is met. The town engineer also indicated that the existing sidewalk along the south side of the property will need to have an easement granted, so staff will work with the applicant on that at final review as well. A traffic report was submitted early with the sketch plan. That's not a requirement at sketch plan, but they submitted early so that we could take an initial look. The town engineer did indicate that the traffic study is meeting town requirements. It showed that the CDOT interchange project that's doing improvements to exit 203 on I-70 was identified as an effective mitigation to future traffic conditions. We do want to acknowledge some public comments were received around traffic concerns, and those will be shared with the town engineer prior to final review so that he can take those into consideration and consider any improvements that might be needed. And there will be a more full review and analysis of the traffic study at that time, since it's typically submitted at the final review. The staff report also noted that an adjustment is needed to the size of the parking spaces and some bike parking is needed, but otherwise the application is meeting the required quantities of parking spaces. So I'm just going to talk through a couple of landscaping things that we'd like Planning Commission input on. So there are requirements for internal parking lot landscaping. For this parking lot size, it requires 628 square feet of internal parking lot landscaping. So we'd like to know if Planning Commission thinks that this is meeting that requirement, given that there's not the traditional internal parking lot islands. There's also a requirement that paving directly against a building has to have a landscaped area 5 to 10 feet in width running along at least half of the building. And Planning Commission could approve a reduction to that landscape buffer to only 35% of the length of the building. So you can think about that. Staff does not see landscape buffers on the north, south, and west sides of the building. We see the paving directly abutting the building on those sides. So we'd like you to comment on the landscape buffers as well. For the facade of the building, the applicant is utilizing an existing building with a couple of new materials, including aluminum accent panels and aluminum drive-through canopies. And we are going to have them submit a physical sample of the proposed gold trim on those drive-through canopies at the final site plan review. I also wanted to note the staff report had stated that the stone columns would be retained on the building, but since the staff report was sent around, the applicant clarified that those windowed walls are being bumped out to where the columns are, so they will not be like freestanding columns anymore. The applicant can clarify that a bit more if you'd like, but I just wanted to note that for building articulation. And then you received 2 public comments in your packet, and then there's 2 more printed before you. Those are also available online at this point if the public would like to see them. They mostly express concerns around traffic and odors, parking, and some other questions for you to consider. Staff did want to note that the Frisco Town Code prohibits odors that endanger the health, safety, or welfare of the community. And so if community members feel that any odors are violating town code, you may contact the Frisco Police or the business to work that out. And as I said before, traffic concerns will be shared with the town engineer and public works director. And that's all. These are your discussion items to provide feedback on during the discussion for the sketch plan so that the applicant can refine the proposal for their full submittal.
Thanks, Emma.
Mhm.
So we'll start with questions for staff.
Yeah, so one question I had, and you may have kind of alluded to it a little bit, is the stop sign at what is it, Lake Point and 10 Mile? Like, I've had people blow through that stop sign before. I saw some public comments about that. Would the town be willing to increase the size of the stop sign, put more markings on the pavement and that type of thing to make that a safer area?
Yeah, so we are gonna share that concern with the town engineer so that he can consider it for the final submittal. He didn't have those comments when he did his review this time, so I think we can encourage him to look at that.
And I'll add, just to
Yeah, go
clarify
ahead.
too, we talked about this a little today, because he's newer to the community. We know that that applicant or the public comments addressed that maybe they didn't have positive feedback or responses in the past. We're not sure if he even is aware of these situations, if they've raised them to him.
Okay.
So it may be a new conversation he didn't think about looking at because the traffic study said it was okay. Which is why Emma's gonna kind of have a separate conversation with him to bring him into the loop on it.
Okay.
Just to help. So, yeah.
And then I just wanted to make sure I understand the landscaping buffer. We're talking about the strip right next to the building, right?
Yeah,
And is there landscaping there today?
there is
a little bit, there's some
landscaping there.
shrubs.
Yeah.
And so their proposal is just concrete on those three sides?
That's how it appears to me. Yep.
Okay, that's all the questions I have right now.
Just do a follow-up question, because it's also on landscaping. So there's a requirement that there's landscaping between the pavement and the building.
Yep.
And then also on landscaping, sorry, while we're looking at this page, there was also a question is, do we consider this to be parking lot landscaping? Because there's no islands.
Yeah, there's no islands, but it's also not just a rectangle of parking, so I don't know that they could put more islands in, which is why we wanted you to comment on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other landscaping issues you wanted us to comment on?
Just those.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Sorry.
Anything else here?
No.
There's more.
I just have a quick question. You mentioned the traffic study said that they were mitigating traffic with the new interchange. Was there traffic issues? You know?
I believe that if that project was not considered, there might have been an issue, but we're gonna have the town engineer look at it more fully. Cause it did say that the exit 203 mitigation is what made it sufficient.
Chelsea?
This seems, I think you might have said something last week or last time, Kitty. This seems like an administrative thing. Remind me why this is.
It was borderline, but based on the square footage of the building in the complete change of use, we decided to send it to planning commission to be on the safe side.
And I don't know, this may be an applicant question, but why are they not using where there's already a drive-through window? Is it like
Well, that-
configuration of
Yes, it
kitchen or, okay. Those are my only questions.
Ira?
10 Mile Drive and the intersection, which is at the south, was it Drake Landing? That's not a four-way stop. That's a two-way stop. That's all I want to ask.
Yes, I think it's a two-way stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that could become a four-way. I mean, if that was our recommendation or something.
It might be hard when you come off of like Summit Boulevard
Right.
to only have a block or half a block before you put in a four-way stop. Because that road kind of like turns there and that's probably why it's not already a four-way.
I'm
Because-
thinking since it's not a four-way, maybe that's why people are blowing through it.
Yeah, well, but I'm not sure if it could become a four-way easily because of
Okay.
its
CDOT
location,
might have some rules about that.
but it is dangerous as it is.
That's it.
Jessica, anything else?
Just one question about the the McDonald's logo. Is that gonna be like an internally lit sign or are we gonna have?
So signage isn't reviewed as part
Okay.
of the major site plan. They'll have to submit a separate sign permit application.
Yeah, and
Yeah, so I'm not sure.
What that
They-
is.
They might be able to respond
Is
to that.
if we would be, with this dark sky certification requiring commercial businesses not have internally lit signs, it would be nice to see that shown.
Like Target, because they had to comply with the dark sky in Silverthorne Target. So they have like a backlit or it's on
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
It's not like neon.
Okay, no other questions. Thank you.
I'm going to go back to the landscaping for just a second. Can you clarify what is the code asking for with these landscape islands that they're not complying with? Can
So
you
it
be more
doesn't
clear about that?
Exactly. In what's internal parking lot landscaping. So I think we could call the sections that are going in internal.
corners?
Yeah, if the corners are internal, that might be sufficient.
Okay,
It's vague because it usually means islands in the middle of a expanse of And we wouldn't also want to require them to put something in that's going to cause traffic problems with circulation.
Okay.
So from a common sense standpoint, and that there's a little bit of vagueness in the code, staff feels that it's sufficient, but because it is a little bit up for kind of interpretation on that code section, we wanted to make sure the commission agreed.
And then also on, sidewalks up against the building, it seems like we have that all over the place. What's the code? How's the code read when it's requiring landscaping between the sidewalk?
Yeah, it says for paving abutting a building, a landscape buffer is required for 50% of the building. I could pull up the exact language if that would help, but
Is that just in this zone? I mean, we don't have that on Main Street.
it's in the non-residential development standards. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
That's a good
Like-
point. that Andy's making, is that we don't have.
Yeah, I don't feel like I understand that one because it seems like that's violated everywhere. Walmart's got sidewalks up against it, no landscape buffer, none of the other.
Yeah,
all
or
of
Frisco Station.
Yeah, if this zone specific or, I mean, if it's a non-residential standard.
Section says except for the central core district. So central core would be exempt. And then I can't speak to like Walmart.
Yeah,
how the
old
code of
projects,
habits then, yeah.
Obviously, I'm just
Um,
curious because I can think of
Yeah.
very
it
few
is-
projects that have that landscape buffer.
Yeah. It is in the non-residential development standards, not in the landscaping section, which can be a little confusing.
And it does say except in the central core district.
Okay.
And I think it's that we haven't seen any new commercial outside of that district in years. So.
Okay. All right, any other questions for staff? Okay, then this is our opportunity to open it up for public comments. We will ask you to step to the microphone, state your name and address.
First.
Oh, I'm sorry. Applicant. Yeah, I know, I'm out of order. Yeah, we'll get to public comments in just a few minutes. You'll have an opportunity.
For baseball consideration around the building, you need a buffer so that the ice can fall and not land on the walkway.
Thank you. Yes, apologize. We will open it up to the applicant presentation, please.
However
No,
you
no,
guys
no,
want to do.
this is the
We're
right
fine.
time. Sorry.
Filling in, huh?
I'm gonna roll Whatever you guys want to do.
Cheers.
Thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Robert Palmer with Strategic Land Solutions. I'm representing First Bank and McDonald's on the project for you. I appreciate your time tonight. I want to tell you, I work in a lot of different jurisdictions. I just want to, acknowledge the professionalism of your staff. They've been done a great job, just communicating with us and the small stuff, answering phone calls, emails, is super helpful. And we really look forward to a collaborative effort with like we've had with the staff and with Planning Commission. We'll kind of roll through the slides and get into it. So we obviously McDonald's, the thought process on the site was that we would reuse as much of the site as possible, limit the impact to it rather than just come in and raise the site completely and start over. We really tried to come in with a soft footprint, reuse the work that's been done out there with the building elevations and all the work that's been done in the past to create that part of the neighborhood. So we've really tried to maintain that part of the existing architecture, layout, traffic patterns, access, and everything that's already been done out there. We're here tonight, obviously, to talk about the sketch plan part of this, the collaborative effort. I think just go real quick through where the site's located right off of Summit Boulevard and I-70. It's the old First Bank building site. Like I said, we're planning to keep the drive accesses in the location that they are now. Our sketch plan review criteria is that we've looked at and we'll continue to look at with staff is the Frisco zoning code, the Lake Point PD plan development, stage 3 specifically, lot 2, block 1 on that. We've had our pre-application meeting with town staff, and we've had several coordination emails back and forth between us to this point, which we really appreciate. The Lake Point PD, this is our first meeting at the sketch plan level. It requires it's been decided that it requires a commission approval on the site plan. Part of that package that's required in the Lake Point is the site plan, a landscape plan, a utility plan, a floor plan, and architectural elevations. In addition, we're going to provide a landscape, or I'm sorry, we're going to provide a lighting plan with that, but more detailed information than that's just stated in there too. We really want to present package so that the town understands what we plan on building out there and supports what we're building. This is a Town of Frisco zoning map. It just shows that we're on the Lake Point, which is area 12 on your zoning map. This is the actual Lake Point PD stage map. We're in the center here on pad 3. In that PD, this is just a clip from the PD where it talks about stage 3 and lists the drive-in restaurant as an approved use in that PD. This area was master planned as part of a commercial area, retail, and you've kind of seen that develop out with the new development, Starbucks and things like that just to the north of us. It's what the PD envisioned when it was put together originally. This is a copy of the existing site plan. I just bring this up because our next slide is going to show what we're proposing. And I just want to kind of give staff and planning commission our vision. What we're trying to do is come in with as lightest footprint as possible. Kind of keep the building footprint, the landscape footprint as much as possible. Keep the mature growth, especially along the north and the west side along Summit Boulevard. Really kind of respect the footprint of the area that's being used right now on it. And so this is a copy of what we're proposing now. So you can see really we're planning to take away the existing drive-up tellers. And the reason that we do that is we really want to be sensitive to the residences and everything along the east side. So we want to move all of our menu boards and everything behind the building. And just kind of on a noise level, without a building involved, when you get if you measure sound about a foot away from the speaker, 17 feet past that, you're at or below like 60 decibels, which is kind of standard vehicle traffic. At 55 feet, your speakers are below a conversation. So across the street, the closest residents are about 250 feet. So it's not even audible as while you're on the site, much less across the street. Your typical car is about 70 decibels, 60 to 70. Bigger trucks, 70 to 80 decibels that'll be running, that are already running along that street. So we've really tried to place our menu boards and all that activity behind the building. So you've got the building as a buffer between us and any kind of residence. And also this area back here sits down about 5 or 6 feet below Summit Boulevard. So it's sunk down. So your headlights aren't going to be shining out into Summit Boulevard. It's just kind of the right place we feel to put that drive through, to pull that traffic away from and any of that noise and congestion that goes with those drive-throughs, to pull that away from the closest residential area and really place it towards the street. And again, we've tried to come in along the west side and especially the north, the west, and the south, and really keep the curb lines where they're at now. Keep the landscape buffers that have existed there in the area that they're now. When we started this project, the landscape was buried in snow. It's not buried in snow anymore, but it's not growing yet, right? So we will have our landscape architect come out, look at the health of the existing plants. We'll keep all the plants that are healthy, keep the trees that we can, and then we'll augment that with additional landscaping to make sure that it's screened and it's a nice looking site. We've also tried to come in back here around the back of the building kind of has two fronts, and we'll get into that in a minute, but kind of on the back side and put a patio out here, again, to buffer those drive-throughs, but also give, you know, on a nice day, someplace to sit outside and eat. And again, you can kind of see what we've tried to do. So with the landscape islands, we'd love to hear your feedback on this. You know, our thought process was we've got landscaped islands at the end of each one of these parking rows, and that's kind of how it is now. And we'll enhance that. We've got landscape islands up on this parking row as well. We can come in, we've got landscaping all along the front of the building. I think we can get really close to that 50% of landscaping up against. We can add landscape along the back of the building. The only place I think we would like planning commission's input on that was right now we're running this sidewalk up off the street, and then we're coming right up along the building. We could continue that sidewalk up and bring it around this way, and that would, I'm sure we could get to our 50% there if it's important to meet that 50% buffer. We don't really, you know, if we can do a administrative modification, that's fine. We're not gonna come in for a variance on anything like that. But we would love to hear your feedback on that. So that's kind of the thought process on how we do that. This restaurant will incorporate a modern kitchen with all the scrubbers and things like that. It's not gonna have smoke pouring out the top. It's not gonna have fumes and everything else. It'll have a grease interceptor that'll be maintenance regularly on the outside of the building, so that those can stink if they don't. The grease storage for the kitchen is an interior, so we don't have like vaults of grease storage and the trash enclosure area. The truck actually comes up, evacuates it straight out of the building into the truck, puts new grease in. So that's a big area of issue in older restaurants where they're storing grease waste outside. That's one of the biggest areas that those odors come from. So this restaurant won't have any of those exterior grease storage or anything else like that. And we did provide, you know, traffic is always a topic of discussion. We always want to get ahead of that. So we did have our traffic study done before it was required. We want to get that in front of the city. We want to start those discussions early. We want to be good neighbors. This slide kind of shows, this slide I'm bringing up right now, kind of shows the rate of the impact on what we expect the traffic to increase, not just straight what McDonald's is putting in, but what's there now versus what McDonald's would put in, you know, would add to it. And that'll be discussed more with town staff. I think part of the problem, and I think Emma touched on it a little bit, was with people running that four-way stop, is it's got a sign there, but it's really not intuitive. Like there's no striping or anything else in there. There's just like a stop sign that you're on top of before you see it. We're more than happy to go out there and reorient that stop sign, put a bigger sign out there. It's one of the smaller, it's legal, but it's one of the smaller ones. And we can put some pavement markings out there to help with that, That's where we don't want people running stop signs in front of McDonald's either. So more than happy to partner with the town on that. And again, so we're going to move into the building now. You can kind of see that we're really trying to maintain the existing architecture that's out there and match it on the lower one here, the lower elevation we have shown on there, which is your south elevation. That's where the drive-through windows are. So that we're going to have to bring those windows out. You know, obviously, if anyone who's been to a drive-through, you don't want to reach 2 or 3 feet to be served. So those windows will pull that wall out with those windows. That's the biggest change in the building that we're gonna have to do as part of this, but we've really just tried to keep the look that's out there now, the architecture. This is your other two elevations on that. You can see we've got a lot of glazing on there. We're keeping the glazing where we can that's out there, and really just trying to create a nice building that people will use. But we're not trying to change the architecture. We're not trying to change the feel. We're not trying to change the access to the neighborhood that already exists. We're really trying to respect what's out there now and maintain that. Again, our approval criteria that, you know, we feel like we've met. We've had our pre-application meeting. We're in front of you for our sketch plan review now. Our drive-through is a use by right in this stage of the PD. We've included and will continue to include more than the minimum. We're not in the process, in the habit of doing the minimum. We're gonna meet all the submittal requirements, and we're gonna bring more information in. And then just kind of a sustainability note, McDonald's, you know, really works hard to include recyclable material in this building for future demolition. If this building was ever torn down, we really want to try and bring in things that would be recyclable and reusable. We're planning an all-electric building here, so we're not planning to bring gas or anything else with our heaters or our fryers or our grills. Our cups, our bags, napkins made from sustainable material. McDonald's was part of the United Nations Race to Zero campaign by 2050. They've implemented greenhouse gas reductions across their, not just the restaurants, but their supply chain as well. They did a study in 2022, which is about 3 years after they'd started that, and they were showing about a 7.8% reduction in greenhouse gases at that time, and they've continued to advance those procedures and those type of things. I imagine we'll see another study out of them here in the next few years. That's really our open for questions. Whatever questions you have for us. Thank you, Robert.
Jessica, you want to start? You have any questions for the applicant?
No, have any questions? Thank you.
All right.
So let me get this right. I think it's the south side where the drive-through is and the windows are going to be filling in where the columns are.
Yes, that is the south side, correct.
How much roof overhang is it where the cars will drive?
That's a good question. Corey Steiner is our architect. He's on this call. Can he just unmute and answer that question? Corey?
Hello, this is Corey. Can you hear me?
Yeah, gotcha.
All right, so basically the roof overhang does not change. So the column locations that are there now will remain in their current location. And then the wall that's pushed back, recessed in, that creates that larger roof overhang will just be brought out. So the overhang from the existing column line to the existing roof will stay exactly in the same plane. So it's just basically the wall beyond the columns that will be brought out to the columns. And the columns themselves, we basically kept where they're at and just brought the storefront out.
Snow guards. Are you thinking of any snow guards on the roof section right there?
We absolutely can. We haven't really gotten that far into the technical details, but we absolutely can do snow guards along the eaves of the roof. We also have the canopies that we were proposing over the drive-through windows, which will help protect our customers at each of the windows. But absolutely, if snow guards are warranted on the pitch of the roof, we're definitely on board with that as well.
Okay. One other, what are the typical hours for a McDonald's restaurant? Weekdays, weekends, and so forth?
So typically, and we'll adjust them as customers warrant, but typically we would like to have our lobby open from 10 o'clock or from 7 o'clock in the morning until, is it 7? 6. Sorry, 6 in the morning until about 10 o'clock at night. And then the drive-through would be 24 hours a day, specifically on like Friday, Saturday night. But Yes.
Unbelievable.
24 hours a day, that's whether there's traffic or not. In other words, you're gonna be staffing it 24 hours a day.
If it didn't warrant it, we would not. So in the beginning, yes, and then as it was used, we would adjust those hours to whatever. If it was typically open 24 hours and nobody showed up, we would not maintain 24-hour operation on the drive-through.
Okay,
And if you had a lot of people, you would open from 6 till
We,
midnight.
we'll have time for public comment in a little bit. Thank you.
I'm
Anything
done.
else, Sarah? Kelsey?
No questions for the app. Thank you.
Candace?
Can you speak to any of the traffic mitigation? I think you had a slide about like the CDOT project. Is there mitigation needed based on the traffic study?
The traffic study does not show mitigation being required.
Okay. That's my question.
What's the plans for any signage out front? Are you gonna do any additional signage out in that south area or west area?
We haven't, signage isn't reviewed as part of this, and we really haven't looked at a comprehensive sign package yet. We would like to reuse the existing monument sign that's out there now and change the face copy on it. So we wouldn't anticipate, that's what we'd anticipate for the majority of the signage, other than our typical building signage.
And then I don't know if I saw, you mentioned there's canopies over where you order. Is that shown in some of the documentation that you submitted?
We didn't include the canopies over the top of the drive-through areas, but they're just kind of rectangular canopies that stick out over the top that when it's raining or anything like that, and you.
Just enough to cover like where you're opening your windshield?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not like a tunnel or anything that will cover your whole car, just really to protect you when you're ordering.
That was it for me.
I'm curious, we've run into other projects where the mechanical equipment isn't shown very clearly at this stage of a project. I see you've got mechanical equipment shown on a mezzanine on the roof. Do you anticipate that exceeding the screening that's currently up there?
We
Will be able
will
to see that?
I don't know that we've looked at the parapet height on it yet, but we would fully screen the equipment. If the existing parapet's not sufficient, we would screen it with additional screening.
As part of the next round, we'd love to see that and be sure that it's going to be properly screened from site. Obviously, there's equipment that's going to go up there that's not up there now. So we'd like that to be included in your next submittal.
Yeah, completely screening mechanical equipment is standard procedure for us.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? No, okay, now.
Now you can do
Okay.
it.
All
We're
right.
ready. Sounds
So-
like it's gonna be a good one.
We are going to go ahead with the public comment portion. And as I started to say earlier, if you'd like to speak, please step to the podium, state your name and your address. We do ask that you address the planning commission and not the applicant, and let us know what you think. But if you can keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, we'd appreciate that. We've read your letters, so we don't need you to get up and read your letters. We've all had a chance to read those today. And we'd also ask that you don't repeat something that's already been stated. Once somebody says something, we don't need to hear it again. So with that, we'll open the microphone up. Anyone that would like to step forward and make comment on this item, step to the podium and state your name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Tim Colton. I am the president of the Drake Landing Homeowners Association, and I'm here to address the planning committee and voice our strong concerns about the proposed project. I do have some notes. I just want to touch on a few key things that we are very concerned about. First of all, in the area of traffic, I think there's an assumption that the portion of 10 Mile Drive that is between the Drake Landing buildings and the Natural Grocers and this proposed site is a normal arterial street. It is not. It is actually a residential street. Those units on those two buildings, the lower floors are commercial, but all of the upper units are residential. And so Drake Landing has about 66 units in total. About 20 of them are on that front section. About 20 of them are commercial and 20 of them are it's about 10 commercial and 10 residential along that front side. They are going to be directly impacted by the changes in traffic. The traffic study shows a 365% increase in the traffic on that section of 10 Mile Drive. That's pretty extraordinary for a residential street. The traffic study was also based on study periods in October and January. Well, if you've lived in this community, October is probably one of our quietest periods. We refer to it as the shoulder season. And so it raises flags that it was done in that period of time. Also the time of the week that they chose was odd. They chose weekday mornings, afternoons, and a Saturday afternoon. What we experience is heavy traffic on Friday evenings and on Sunday afternoons from roughly noon until 7 in the evening. That's when the gridlock problems that have happened in Summit County have occurred. So we would really like a review of the traffic study. Another issue is restaurant hours versus bank hours. The bank was open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The Silverthorne's McDonald's is open from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. That's stated on their website right now. And as we just heard, they're now talking about a 24-hour drive-through on the other side of a residential street.
That's the 3-minute timer?
And we're not good at stopping it, sort of. On accident.
But we did read your letters, so you don't need to read the letter to us.
Okay. I really want to emphasize, though, we're very concerned about the fast food overload. In a quarter-mile stretch, you're now talking about 5 fast food restaurants that are directly in front of our complex, our residential area. Thank you for your time.
Can I ask you one quick question before you sit down? The parking for Drake Landing, is any of that on this road, or it's all around back, right?
No, it is in front of the commercial units.
But for the residential units, parking is in the back or on the street?
It's enclosed inside of the complex. But those, and this is something that we've had an interesting discussion with the town on. The parking spaces that are directly in front of the commercial units, that is Drake Landing property, and it is maintained by Drake Landing itself. So we take care of the striping, we have to do the plowing, we have to do all of the maintenance of that. And we're very concerned that that will be used by both during the construction phase and during the operation phase. It'll be used by people associated with McDonald's.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? I see there's a couple hands up online, but we'll take care of anybody else in the chambers that would like to step to the podium. State your name and address.
I'm Mark Meyer. Live in Centennial, Colorado, but own a unit in Drake Landing. So, thank you I got almost all my questions answered, just sitting here listening to this. But I actually was just kind of curious. So we have commercial zoning on this. Is there any kind of control over the operating hours of the commercial entities in those zones? I mean, does the town have any purview over that, or is this just a free, or is it just a free for all once you've been zoned commercial?
I'll let Katie back me up on this. I know we do have noise ordinances that will come into effect at certain times of the day, but in terms of operating hours, I don't believe we regulate that.
Commercial uses like this.
And then the other question I had is just trying to understand what the impact is over the next year or two. what kind of construction timeline do you anticipate? And when do you think the anticipated opening date is for this restaurant?
That information we don't have. I don't know. Emma, do you have it? Do you
We
have
can go
that?
back to the applicant after and maybe.
We can ask that later.
That was just the two questions I had unanswered. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else in the chambers that would like to step forward?
My name's Christy Cotton. I'm a homeowner at Drake Landing and also a licensed real estate broker with Live Sotheby's International Realty. Here to express my strong opposition to the proposed McDonald's at Lake Point Drive and 10 Mile Drive. That intersection is already very busy and dangerous. As you've heard, our patio is about three or four patios down from the intersection. And in the summertime, actually all year round, but especially in the summertime, we hear constant horns honking because people are running the stop sign. In the winter, I mean, it's a weekly occurrence. I've already called the town to ask them to do something about that because it's only a matter of time that somebody gets hit there because it's on the rec path. And obviously the McDonald's with all of their high traffic is going to increase the traffic. So, and then I'm a real estate professional and I can say with confidence that placing McDonald's directly across the street from the residential condos at Drake Landing will definitely have a negative impact on property values. Buyers are drawn to Drake Landing for its peaceful residential character, and this kind of commercial development is completely out of place and will completely deter future investment in the community. And I urge the council to reconsider and explore alternative locations and that are more suitable for a business of this nature. Thanks.
Anyone else in the chamber that would like to speak?
Good afternoon. My name is Harry Canales. I'm also a resident at Drake Landing. I work for the Family Intercultural Resource Center. I'm a swim coach at the high school. I'm a swim coach for the Silverthorne Rec Center as well. You've already heard all about the impact of the traffic. I think the numbers speak for themselves, as Mr. Colton proposed. I think it's already been overlooked. I know that we have complained about it. Nothing's been done so far. It will take an accident, most likely, for somebody to actually really listen. And I see this happening sooner than later, especially with the increase that this is going to cause. The values stated by Mrs. Cotton, the same. From the perspective of somebody who works within the Summit County, dealing with families, et cetera, I'm in charge of the peer support department. We have a parenting program, women's and men's empowerment program. And one of our biggest concerns is trying to improve the health of our constituency. And I don't understand how having a Wendy's, a Subway, a Dunkin' Donuts, a Kentucky Fried Chicken, and now a McDonald's added to a very, very short radius from this community is going to help in any way or form. And I don't understand how that adds to the quality of life that Frisco has been known for. It is very sad. I also find it interesting that the applicant addressed the staff, addressed the town proposing and selling their program, but there was no concern about the constituency or the public. It is all about the appearance of the building and how it's going to look good. But the material of what is being sold and what it's going to cause is going to lower the quality of life for those of us who live there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Comments in the chamber? Please.
My name is Kristen, and I'm a homeowner at Drake Landing, also from Littleton, Colorado. Just today, I was walking my dogs in front of Drake Landing on a walk, and it was around school bus stop time in the morning, and there's kids that are walking to the bus stop right in front of that whole area. And I just want to really reiterate the safety issue of children, of skiers who we see going to the bus stop to catch the bus to Breckenridge, to Copper. There's a lot of foot traffic, and this is just going to completely increase so much more traffic in front of those sidewalks. There's going to be, like has stated earlier, an accident and someone will be hit. It's just going to be a complete disaster. And just for the safety of the residents, for the children, this just needs to not be approved. And you just need to consider that, because skiers walking to that bus stop, kids walking to school, walking home from school, there will be a problem. And it's going to be too late if you approve it. So I ask you to please reconsider.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Todd. I'm also a owner in Drake Landing. I was at the same city council when, I don't know if any of you guys were here, when Natural Grocers was approved. And it was nothing like the applicant, not this applicant, different applicant, put in. We have much more traffic than what was projected. The building was not the same as was proposed. You have a loading dock that is right across the street from our residents. And there actually are residents that are on the ground floor, right on 10 Mile Drive. They're not on the upper floor as well. The traffic study that he proposed, I don't know if you can even read it on your screen, but I took a picture of it. It's on a Saturday, it's 121 visits per hour. And okay, figure that out for a 24-hour period. That is a residential street. It is not designed for more traffic. It's already bad. You guys have already made it bad. The other problem is crime. McDonald's take in either studies, I've actually sent you a letter. You can look at the study that McDonald's bring in more crime. We have the what's it called, Native Roots that's right there. We have homeless people now that are driving around here. You have a facility that's going to be open 24 hours. I was just walking on the path and there's homeless people sleeping on the path. You know, and this has been happening throughout the winter. So that's another consideration. So I would really hope the city council doesn't just listen to this slick proposal. They have their lawyers from McDonald's here that are, you know, very good at trying to get things passed. They're a multi-million national company. Please listen to your residents. Your residents that live around there do not want a McDonald's here. We already have enough. We didn't purchase this property knowing that there was going to be a McDonald's there. It's a bank. Like Tim said, it's totally different than, McDonald's is totally different than a bank. And it's not an appropriate spot. 60% of McDonald's are actually in shopping centers. There's a directly from McDonald's site. Why can't they go look at using some of the space that's not used in Safeway or in Walmart? There's a property that's for sale right by Summit Inn that's already has right on Dillon Dam Road. There's already a light to get off there. That property is for sale. You could go purchase that property. There are other options for the developer than repurposing this. So strongly ask you as residents and fellow community members to, you know, not approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. I feel like we've heard from everybody. Is there anyone else in the room that has anything to add?
While we switch over to the online comments, can I ask everybody who spoke to make sure your name and address is on the sheet so we can reflect it in the minutes accurately, please? Thank you.
Lynn has been waiting patiently with her hand raised. Let's turn it over to her.
Thank you, and I'll lower my hand. My name's Lynn Myers, and I am an interior designer here in Frisco. I've been here for the last 20 years. And I moved into Drake Landing. As soon as I saw this place, I absolutely fell in love with it and bought it like immediately. My patio deck out here faces west, which is just right smack, just kitty cornered from the First Bank. And I'm very concerned as well. I think it's going to be, it's going to create a lot of noise. If I want to go out there and sit on my deck, I don't want to have to listen to a lot of traffic from McDonald's. And second of all, I want to address that stop sign. My boyfriend stopped and then started to go, and some guy was coming the opposite direction, was supposed to stop, and he didn't. And my boyfriend did get hit. So that is also a concern of mine. But since my residential unit faces the US Bank, as soon as that McDonald's, which I don't feel is a it needs to be a high class restaurant. That's what I'm saying, that if you want to put a restaurant in there, put something in there that people are going to sit down and enjoy, instead of, I don't want to have to look at a McDonald's sign outside my deck window. That's all I can say. Because it's going to it's going to drive a lot of ski traffic. I understand that that's what you really want, but it's going to drive a lot of ski traffic in here. And I think it's just going to create a ton of congestion. And it's going to be right outside my patio window, which it's very peaceful where I am right now, but it's not if you put that McDonald's in here. So I totally oppose this McDonald's going in here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike has his hand raised. Mike, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Mike Bernstein. I'm a owner at Drake Landing, Unit A4. And my unit also is directly behind that First Bank. And so I'm just realizing the possibility that now I'm going to be living across the street from a 24-hour McDonald's. And I'm stunned. It feels like it's so off brand for Frisco, to be honest. That's not the Frisco that I know. That's not the Frisco that I purchased and plan to retire in. And now I'm faced with the possibility of having to live across the street from a 24-hour McDonald's. It's also off point. I mean, just in today's day and age where we're learning about the detrimental effects of fast food establishments like McDonald's and their impact on our nation's obesity. And again, it's from a timing perspective, it's just so off point. And just from a, Frisco, I just imagine as, just supportive of a healthy lifestyle with hiking and all of nature's offerings that are available to residents and visitors alike. It just doesn't feel like a fit. I also want to just mention that the Wendy's that's just a little bit down the road is across the street from, I believe, Tarn Landing. And they aren't actually, they're situated much differently than I think we are at Drake Landing, where they have tall arborvitaes kind of screening. And I don't think they have decks that face into that Wendy's. So it feels like a different setup than the Wendy's situation. And I want to express my strong opposition to this McDonald's. I just don't think it's a fit for Frisco and a fit for Drake Landing. And like everybody has said, it's a residential street. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other hands raised online? Tom, you're up.
Yeah, just a question. I'm also owner at Drake Landing. There's a McDonald's in Silverthorne. Do we need another one a couple miles away from the location in Silverthorne?
Did you have any other comments, Tom?
No, I'm strongly opposed to it. I echo what everybody else has said. Like we bought there in Frisco for the peacefulness and quality of life. I have 2 young children, and I just learned on this call, this is going to be a 24-hour McDonald's with traffic, noise, smells. I just think the town of Frisco could do much better than that. It's disappointing to see that this is even being considered for a restaurant in Frisco. I mean, if you look at Silverthorne, what they're doing with their downtown along the river, they're putting nice restaurants in. Why are we getting a McDonald's? It just, yeah. Yep, that's all I have to say, unless, Jess, do you have anything to say about it? We live, by the way, we live in Golden, Colorado, and we own in Frisco, and Golden is doing a good job of getting the chain restaurants out of Golden proper because people don't want them.
And how about also supporting local businesses, you know, rather than bringing these big chain restaurants in? I think it would maybe reflect a little bit more of, you know, what people want in Frisco, to have a local restaurant, locally owned, you know, people that live and work in Frisco versus a big chain restaurant. That's all.
Yep.
Thank you.
Strongly oppose.
Okay. All right, Willis, you're up next.
Hi, how are you guys doing today? Interesting. I've owned my unit in Drake Landing since 2001. I'm a little bit curious, and I did not see in the applications, how do people who are getting off on the first exit, I believe it's 203, into Frisco, turn left to go into the new McDonald's? There is no left-hand turn at the intersection that leads to the deadly intersection that has been mentioned numerous times. My question is, so is all that traffic going to turn left at the KFC and then come around to enter McDonald's? Well, that is going to add a significant amount of traffic to a residential street. Have you guys looked, has this been addressed? Because I didn't see it in the traffic. It was fairly quick, but I didn't see it being addressed in the traffic assessment whatsoever. Thank you.
It looks like Beth is up next.
Yes. Hi, I'm Beth Osment. I'm also an owner at Drake Landing E14, and we face right across from the Starbucks. And I agree completely with Willis. The traffic coming off the exit to go to McDonald's, that's going to be a complete backup all the way to the roundabout when they're making a left-hand turn into where the KFC is. Unless they go through the Starbucks parking lot and loop around, it's going to be major traffic congestion with people heading west in the mornings. Already the Starbucks in the mornings, especially during ski weekends, is all the way backed up to the street to 10 Mile Drive. I'd just like to second what everybody else, all the owners at Drake Landing said, and thank you everybody for showing up and giving us the opportunity to speak up. But we strongly oppose it as well. Thank you.
Up next is Ashley. Ashley, did you want to speak? Oh.
Sorry, I'm here.
Okay, there you go.
We are owners in the B building, and you know, the 24-hour thing is equally as alarming as a 300% traffic increase. You know, one of the great things about being up there is you can walk everywhere, and it's already wildly dangerous. I mean, walking across the highway, trying to get over to Safeway or something like that, wildly dangerous. And now if you want to turn that traffic down onto 10 Mile, seems crazy to me. Like, why would the town of Frisco think this was a good idea? Wildly oppose. Thank you again for having us all speak, but it's the wrong location. It's just the wrong location.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. I see a couple of hands raised that already spoke, right? Are there, oh, Reese just raised her hand. Reese?
Hello, thank you so much for your time. I just want to echo my fellow Drake's Landing neighbors. I also strongly oppose the McDonald's. This is our home. We moved to Frisco for the quiet. It's peaceful. We walk right over to get on the bus to ski. We cross right over 10 Mile in our ski boots. And that walking path that's why we bought there, is because it was a bank and it didn't have the traffic. And the fact that we are I'm not worried about the speaker, because all of the traffic is going to cover up any speaker noise, because it is going to flow out into 10 Mile. 10 Mile, it's going to flow into the Deadly intersection. It's going to back on up to Lake Point, and it is going to create a massive jam that we do not want. We don't want the sounds. We don't want the traffic. We don't want the noise. We don't want the smells. We want to keep that community of homes and condos as a residential area. And I understand that we are pro-business. I think everyone on here has said we would love to find a business to go in there. This is the wrong one. There are plenty of other spaces. And if you want to look at what Silverthorne looks like with the McDonald's, feel free to go up there, because it is an absolute train wreck. It is wrapped into a retail space, and the traffic to get in and out of there is dangerous. And it is proven that it is going to cause a massive problem where we live. And I think we just said it's 200 feet to our homes. That's just too close. I think there's other places, there's better places in Frisco if they choose to do this, for it to go somewhere else. But we would like something that has the same traffic pattern as a bank, so that we can keep our residential space exactly how it was when we bought. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Are we seeing any other hands? Oh, owner, can you identify yourself? You're up, but give your name and address, please.
Is this me?
No, Willis, I think we heard from you already. There's someone just labeled owner.
Can you hear me?
There you are. Yes. Can you state your name and address, please?
I'm Debbie Dodd, and I have a condo at Drake Landing, and our balcony faces the proposed McDonald's location. We are adamantly opposed to having a McDonald's there for the various reasons that everyone has stated: the traffic, the noise, the smell, the lights, the garbage, the hours of operation. We do not want to see a McDonald's go there.
Okay. Thank you for your comment. Anyone else?
Hey, this is Patrick Mahoney. I'm an owner at D2 Drake Landing. I don't think there's anything more to be said other than, what everyone else has said. I just want to go on record as also strongly against this. That's all. Thank you.
Anyone else online?
I'm trying.
Did we hear somebody?
I'm trying to get speak in.
Colette? Is that Colette? I think you're muted again.
Am I muted?
There you go. Now we can hear you. Go ahead, Colette.
Okay, thank you. Colette Berg. I also am a homeowner in Drake Landing, full-time resident. And I concur with all of my neighbors. And I have one question for the planning commissioners, and that is clearly, I mean, I don't know any of you. I respect the work that you do, and I thank you for this process. I don't think any of you live in our part of town. So I would just ask you this. If someone came to you and said they were going to put a McDonald's in your backyard about 40 steps from where your front door is, how would you feel? Would that be cool for you? And if it's good enough to put a McDonald's near where we live, why don't we put it on Main Street and see what happens? Thank you.
Any other comments from online? See anyone else? I know it's a big list.
I have a question.
Yeah, just 1 second. Let me see if we've gotten to everybody here now.
I don't see any other hands.
Okay. So this isn't really time for a question. If you have a comment that you'd like to make, I will let you come back up and
Thank you.
restate your name and address, please.
Thank you. My name is Harry Canales, again, another one of the residents of Drake Landing. I won't pose it as a question, but I believe the applicant mentioned a drive-through. And I believe, if I understand correctly, that drive-through would come from 10 Mile into the building. Is that correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
That's they have a similar, same traffic
Same
pattern
entrance as the bank.
right?
Correct. How big or how many cars will be able to fit into that drive-through before the line starts to form onto 10 Mile Drive? Would any of you know, or would the applicant know?
We don't know. We can ask the applicant.
Excellent. I would like for that to be considered because, as somebody else mentioned, Starbucks many times has easily a 15 line, okay, of cars waiting to go through. And they have somewhat some room. This would be going back onto 10 Mile Drive. And lastly, I believe somebody mentioned something about the odors and that we can complain or make comments to, I'm not sure who on the town, but the odors from Wendy's come into our complex already. The odors from Kentucky Fried Chicken come into our complex already, depending on the wind. And I know that McDonald's has an odor. I don't care what they say about what their sustainability is, okay? But the odor will come towards our buildings. Thank you very much.
Okay. With that, nothing else online. We're going to close the public comment portion of this meeting. We're going to open it up for commissioner comments. Remember, we are not rendering a judgment tonight. We are just discussing it, providing feedback to the applicant, who will then have to come back for another final planning hearing at some point in the future. So,
excuse me. This is Patrick Brown, Drake Landing, C7.
I'm sorry, Patrick, we've closed the public comment portion.
He was.
Was he?
Yeah, I think we might have missed him.
I feel like he already did speak.
Oh.
That's a different.
Oh, it's a different Patrick. I apologize then, Patrick. Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Patrick. Patrick? You still there?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Patrick Brown, Drake Landing, owner here at C7. I would just like to go on record to voice my extreme opposition to this proposed development for the numerous reasons listed by all of my fellow neighbors here. Ultimately, this does nothing to improve any of the quality of life or vision for Frisco. It is a small mountain town. We have plenty of fast food establishments here. We need more small businesses, local businesses, and we have a McDonald's 3 miles away. So just like to go on record and state my strong opposition. Traffic is going to be horrible, and like other people have said, that intersection's an issue. People are walking, it's a residential area. I thankfully am on the backside of Drake Landing, but I can tell you with the amount of businesses in front, we see numerous people pulling U-turns in the middle of the street here, and we have more people with kids. We're off the bike path, numerous dog walkers. Thankfully, I usually see more foot traffic than I do car traffic on the backside here. I can't imagine just being another 100 feet on A or E building and literally having that right off my back deck. So would just like to state my strong opposition and thank you, council, for your time.
Okay. We'll reclose the public comment portion and open it up.
And can I just want to make a general statement for public to first thank you for coming out. And I know it sounds a little frustrating sometimes because you propose your comments. The commission is hearing them. There is a whole nother round that's more in depth. This is kind of our informal first step of a site plan. So even though they may not reflect directly and answer your questions tonight, they're in the minutes, they think about them and they come back up during the full site plan review. That's also when the traffic study will be reviewed more in depth by both CDOT and also the town engineer. And then there are certain topics that I just want to note is unfortunate as it is to hear, the planning commission doesn't have any legality over them. So this is a applicant, like all projects that is under contract privately with a property. The commission can't say yes or no to the type of business because it's allowed by right in the zone district there by the town code. They have a lot of requirements they look at, such as traffic that you've all commented on, odor, things like that. But as far as the actual business type of fast food drive-in is allowed on that property through the PUD. And so if it seems like they're ignoring your comments on that, it's because they can't legally actually have a decision on that. So I just wanted to explain that on behalf of the commission so that you understand that they have limits and they know them of what they're allowed to comment and act on and what they cannot. So, okay.
Thanks,
All right, yeah.
With that, April,
I
want
would
to start
have maybe a
comment?
question for staff too, if I can ask that during this time.
Let's say traffic does become a problem and it does get backed up on 10 Mile. What is the town recourse? What actions can you take to address that? Because I don't even know what we would do.
It's a good question. Since it's a town right away, the town would then be responsible to making more improvements to it. I think the biggest question in this is the CDOT improvements to exit 203 that are scheduled to occur this year and the next couple of years will have drastic improvements, they believe, and the town believes that it will. If those don't occur for some reason, I think that's when what we need to look at is a town when reviewing the traffic study. So, but it would come down to the town having to find solutions for that problem because it was on a town right away.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a tough one, because like she mentioned, we're looking at what meets code and it meets code at this point in time. I would not be happy about a McDonald's either. So I could totally understand the frustration with all the residents that have spoken tonight. But I'm not sure what options we have. So that's kind of the comments that I have for right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd echo April's comments. I definitely hear what everybody's saying and I would absolutely feel the same way. I think some of this is, like Katie said, out of our legality hands. I would agree. I think just given the order of magnitude of traffic, I think the traffic study is definitely something to pay attention to. I know that some of exit 203 is changing our local routing, but that's not necessarily changing Lake Point Drive intersection, which is still going to become an issue. I think it might change how they get in there, but I think I'm surprised at the traffic study findings just from living here. So I would encourage the town to just keep a close eye on that, but yeah, I agree with April.
I mean, I sympathize with the need to, or not wanting a Mickey D's down in your backyard, but this commercial corridor has been this commercial corridor for a long time. It's not that much different. I think though, because the use pattern is going to change so drastically that it is on the applicant to be a good neighbor, the town to be protecting our citizens, that four-way stop needs to be a priority on everyone's list, especially with this change. I don't know if there's any way to come in off Summit Boulevard. And I do think the traffic study needs to reflect when this is going to be in its highest use, how it's going to impact the neighbors. And from a safety standpoint, one block up at the Wendy's, McDonald's, or the Wendy's intersection and Taco Bell, that's just as dangerous. I think there's multiple points on that corridor that need to be addressed. You know, being involved is important, getting on these boards. If you don't want to see chains in our town, we need to change our code. And that comes through public involvement. And but right now this is a use by right, and McDonald's used to be in Walmart in the 90s, and everything we bought then smelled like McDonald's. So I think that this is unfortunate to a lot of people that don't want it, but that this lands on being a good neighbor. Fixing traffic problems when they start, not when they become exasperated. And those are my comments. I think that the landscaping should do its best to buffer and protect its neighbors from having to see headlights. And, you know, I think there's a lot that just needs to happen over time in correcting that area in general.
Thanks, Kelsey.
Good comments, thank you. I would like to believe that McDonald's wants to be a good neighbor. So maybe on your own, you would make a commitment to forego this 24-hour window. I think, I mean, I've been on Main Street and I've been on Highway 9 at 11 o'clock at night. And I'm the only person out there. I mean, go walk Main Street. This town rolls up at 9:30, except for the moose show. But all that being said, I mean, no matter what time it is, I don't think you're going to see me in that line. It's just not part of my diet. As you can see, I'm fit. But really, I really think you should roll back that 24-hour, because that's, I'm going to go look because I don't know the answer here, but I don't know that Wendy's, Taco Bell, or the others are 24 hours. What? Yeah, so I that would be, I mean, I hear everybody's complaint. It's a Drake's Landing centric comment period, which I take into somewhat consideration. But that would be my only request and my only comment at this point is the 24-hour is untenable as a good neighbor.
And I don't think you're going to make any money. I think that's going to be the leader when nobody pulls up.
Yeah, and that's why I asked if it's a commitment. If they aren't making money, then you
Yeah.
close it. But I don't want to rely on it.
Yeah.
I'm a little.
Okay. Oh, thanks, Ira. Jessica?
Thanks. Yeah, I'll echo what my fellow planning commissioners have said in terms of the scope of what we can review and what we can't review. Yeah, I understand the frustration and appreciate the public comment from everyone that spoke. And Kelsey had a really good point. You know, if the town of Frisco doesn't want to see fast food restaurants, it's absolutely an appropriate thing to consider for a zoning code change. And then just a couple other just things to note, you know, I don't know if it's possible to have have at the applicant's expense, have a third party evaluate the traffic study. If that would be a possibility in terms of, you can always have somebody that's working for you, provide a certain type of study. But I think it'd be really great to get a third party on that. The town engineer that's reviewing this traffic study, I think should probably look at this with some additional scrutiny based on all this public comment. And I'm sure they'll do that. And yeah, and I think, what was at least brought up for a minute there was, the applicant offered to potentially, at their cost, pay for some improvements with I think some painting or striping, stop signs, things like that. If that ends up being a recommendation from the traffic study as that moves forward, it's always great to see those things in writing as a commitment for this next round in terms of application. So I think something like that would be really helpful to see in terms of safety improvement.
That's a couple of the comments that were made. I think the relative to some of the stuff that we've heard out here. Sure. So, and I'll keep it brief. So as far as the traffic study goes, we just showed a couple of slides in our presentation. The traffic study is really not, reviewed in depth until the next part of this, the formal site plan. We've tried to be really clear and really open with what we're proposing. So we pulled that traffic study up. the times and the dates that those traffic counts were taken were in coordination with the town's traffic engineer and with CDOT. We postponed to make sure that we weren't doing it in times when school wasn't in and things like that. So we're more than happy to look at those dates again, but we didn't do them on our own. We did them in coordination with town staff, with the traffic engineer. We don't want to get into depth in that stuff because he's not here and it's not the proper time, but that traffic study is over 100 pages long. And the 300, percent is looking at traffic on that road. Worst case scenario, I think it's 25 years in advance with CDOT changes and everything else. It's not a 300% increase from McDonald's traffic alone. So there's more to it than that, and we're more than happy to talk about that, especially at the next thing. I'm not aware of any studies that show McDonald's brings crime into a community. I mean, I'll do some research on that and we'll talk to McDonald's and see what that is. I'm not saying it's not out there. I'm just saying I've never heard it. I've never seen it. And I think I did my first McDonald's project in 1997, 98, something like that. So I've never seen that data, but I'll research that and see McDonald's lights, and at night dim. We dim the parking lot lights. We've got cameras all over. If there's a bunch of illegal stuff going on, it's not going on in McDonald's parking lot. I mean, we'll have more cameras out there than probably any other place in town. So I don't know of any studies that relate McDonald's to homelessness or congregates of homelessness or increased homelessness population or anything else like that. We really want to be good neighbors on that. And we'll go back as a group and we'll talk with McDonald's corporate builds the project, and then it'll be owned by a local franchisee. That franchisee hasn't been named yet. They're in the process of figuring out who that would be. There's a few in this area, but it'll be local. And we'll get with McDonald's as a team with that franchisee who really understands like what the hours of operation really would be in this area. And we'll have that conversation with them and visit that. We've heard the concerns on that, and we'll have an in-depth conversation internally about that and figure that out. We're not going to be open if we're losing money. I can tell you that much. Like McDonald's isn't who they are for doing things like that. We're not going to be open just to be open. So,
thank you for that. Yeah, I want to echo what my fellow commissioners said. I really want to thank you guys for showing up. This is what sparks these conversations and lets the town understand where the community is right now. We're hearing you. We are constantly reevaluating our code and our zoning code. We've been looking at it very recently, and it's great to hear from you guys. We really do appreciate the comments. We are held to the things that we're allowed to look at, and that's what we're looking at today. And again, we're not here to vote tonight. We're just here to provide recommendations to the applicant, which I think the applicant has heard. And I do think that the applicant's already made comments about doing what they can to address the traffic as much as we can. We have a very competent traffic engineer, public works director on our staff here who's going to be looking at this very closely and working with the applicant to do whatever we can. CDOT isn't always the easiest to work with, but we will be working with CDOT and the town and the applicant to make the best of that situation that we can. I fully believe that. So thank you all for coming out. Does anybody else have anything they want to say? Okay, then I think.
Who should we direct them to?
You can direct them to me. And I'm happy to give my card out if that would be helpful. I think you have my email already. So
And it's swapped.
Yeah,
So.
sorry, Emma Heth, emmaH@townoffrisco.com is my email.
Okay, thank you all for coming out. We're going to go ahead and close this agenda item and we're going to move on. I think maybe we'll take a quick break, come back in 5 minutes and move on to our next agenda item. Everybody ready? Yes. Okay, so let's move on to our second agenda item of the night. Planning file number MAJ 240005 and CU 240001. A sketch plan review of the major site plan application for a proposed multifamily residential development consisting of 11 units located at 200 North 7th Avenue, Lot E2, River Pines subdivision, subdivision of Outlot E, replat A, River Pines, and a conditional use application to allow for less than 20% mix of uses in the mixed use zone district. Applicant Seth Francis, representing Blue River Real Estate Fund. And this one is Chris. Take it away, Chris.
So today we're reviewing planning file number MAJ 240005 and CU 240001, a multifamily residential development proposal at 200 North 7th Avenue. This review focuses on the sketch plan, which is an early design phase that allows the Planning Commission to provide feedback before the final major site plan application. As a reminder, there is no vote on the sketch plan. We will also discuss the conditional use permit to allow for 100% residential use in the mixed use zone district. This is the fourth sketch plan review of this application. So as a project overview, the applicant is proposing a new multifamily development consisting of 11 units. The previous application totaled 55,809 square feet, while the current application has 44,387 square feet. And then it has 11 market rate units. If you want me to go more in depth of what those look like, I can do that later. So the subject property is a 1.96 acre developed site with wetlands and is located between North 7th Avenue and Summit Boulevard. When the River Pines planned unit development was approved, Outlot E was mentioned in the PUD agreement as being reviewed in any future application under the standards of a mixed use zone district. Therefore, the site is being reviewed through the mixed use district standards, and the properties to the north are part of the PUD with the underlying zoning of residential low density. The property to the south is the recreational path, also identified as 7th Avenue Alley. And the property to the west is also part of the PUD, has an underlying zone district of mixed use as well, but actually was developed as 100% residential. The property to the east is the right of way for Summit Boulevard. And the staff report shows that the application does meet the Frisco Community Plan. However, staff would like the Planning Commission to discuss whether the application as proposed aligns with the community plan's principles, goals, and policies, specifically sections that you can see on the screen, 1.1a, 2.1b, and 2.1c. And then these next couple of slides, I am just going to go through and show the previous application and the elevation of the most recent application that we're reviewing tonight. So this is the south elevation. This is the north elevation changes. This is the west elevation changes. And these are the east elevation changes. Oops, why does that still say west? I apologize. So those, I can pull those up further in the discussion if you would like to see them again. So the staff report shows that the application meets the development standards of the mixed use zone district. At the final review, however, the application will be reviewed again for compliance with residential design standards to ensure quality development and integration with the surrounding neighborhood. Overall, the application is progressing well, but requires adjustments and further documentation to comply with landscaping requirements. Specifically, they are 57 shrubs short. Next, the staff report shows that the application meets the lot coverage, open space, and parking standards. Maximum building height is 35 feet for a flat roof and 45 feet for a pitched roof in the mixed-use zone district. The applicant is proposing a maximum building height of 45 feet. A roof improvement location certificate will be required during construction to ensure that the building does not exceed the maximum building height. However, staff does have concerns that the contractor for the application can have a roof pitch of 2.01 to 12 when a flat roof is considered 2 to 12. And snow storage, the application shows compliance with snow storage with the data currently provided.
However, the application materials do not account for uncovered decks in that snow storage. Staff also has concerns regarding the proposed location for the snow storage. The areas adjacent to North 7th Avenue is behind the visitor parking spaces. If those parking spaces are occupied during a snowfall event, it is unclear how the snow storage will be used if it's blocked by parked vehicles. At the time of the final review of the major site plan application, the applicant will be required to demonstrate that snow storage is feasible, will not lead to snow being plowed into the wetland setback, and shows the total area of uncovered decks and provides details on snow removal for those decks, ensuring that it will not impact adjacent property and complies with the code. Now, the application as proposed meets the access, non-vehicular access, and setback standards. While ADA parking spaces are not required, staff would highly encourage the applicant to consider them. Now, bicycle parking is located within the garages. However, the application is still required to provide outdoor parking spaces as a multifamily residential development. The site plan will need to demonstrate outdoor bicycle parking at the time of the final site plan review. And these are the parking numbers that I put into a chart for each unit, the bedroom unit, or the number of bedrooms in each unit, the required spaces. Now, we do have 6 and 7 bedroom units. The code only requires 4 parking spaces, even though they have 6 or 7 bedrooms. So they are providing 44 spaces, and 42 are required for the lot. However, with that being said, there is one unit, unit 109, which has an office that meets the definition of a bedroom, classifying the unit as a 4-bedroom unit. This unit only has 3 parking spaces provided. At the full site plan review, the applicant will need to change the layout to meet the definition of a bedroom or to not meet the definition of a bedroom or assign the extra visitor space to unit 109. So parking will be reviewed further during the final site plan review. Also, at the time of final site plan submission, the Community Development Department and Public Works Department are going to conduct a thorough review of the wetland setbacks. Staff recommends adding a condition to the final site plan requiring that before the building permit is issued, the general contractor must provide a letter acknowledging the wetland setback and confirming that no impacts will occur. Additionally, the applicant will be required to install a silt fence and a chain link fencing along the wetland setback line, and the location of these installations must be verified through a stamped survey. And now I just quickly wanted to go over the facade standards. So this is a view from south at Old Drive, and this is a view from west on 7th. And this is a view to the east on Summit Boulevard, and a view to the north at the bike path. Now, staff finds that the proposed building designs do not duplicate each other and that all buildings and units demonstrate variation so as not to appear identical. However, staff requests the Planning Commission discuss the revised building design and determine whether the units appear to be duplicates and use repetitive patterns. I just wanted to pull up a slide of the building materials. This is currently what they are proposing. However, staff would like Planning Commission to comment on the metal roofing and if they agree that it complies with the code. Next, we have the conditional use criteria. I just put up the 6 criteria. So to approve conditional use request, 6 specific criteria must be met. The staff has conducted a thorough analysis of each criterion in the staff report. In summary, staff seeks input from the Planning Commission regarding conditional use number 2. Now, we did find in the code that compatibility is defined. So whereas the staff supports the property being utilized for 100% residential uses, staff would like the Planning Commission to discuss if the revised application complies with criteria number 2, which states that the conditional use is compatible with the mix of development in the immediate vicinity of the parcel in terms of density, height, bulk, architecture, landscaping, and open space, as well as with any applicable adopted regulatory master plan or PUD. Staff wants to point out that the code defines compatibility. Specifically, compatibility does not mean the same as. Rather, compatibility refers to the sensitivity of development proposals in maintaining the character and context of existing development. So staff requests that the planning commission provide feedback to the applicant regarding the proposed conditional use to allow 100% residential use in the mixed use zone district. And if the planning commission does not support the conditional use application, please clearly specify which criteria it does not find to be in compliance, and request the applicant take the time to address the concerns and return to the planning commission at final site plan. So we do have to discuss the parking that they are providing is tandem in the garages. So therefore they have to meet 2 of the 4 criteria that are listed here. And as I said before, we'll review parking at the final site plan. And with that, staff recommends that the planning commission comment on the development in relation to the facade standards outlined in the code, and that staff recommends that the planning commission comment on the use of materials, including the application of metal. And then as far as the conditional use, staff recommends that the planning commission discuss the conditional use permit tonight. However, staff recommends that a vote should not occur on the conditional use permit until the final site plan is submitted. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Thanks, Chris. Questions for staff? April?
So, permitting, does that change the requirements for the height of the building? Okay, so it stays the same. Let me just make sure I didn't have anything else. That's it for right now, for staff.
Thanks.
I think I'm in the same question. So this is a mixed use property and they're going for conditional use to not have the mixed use apply to it.
Correct.
Does the 45-foot height limit come from the mixed use zoning?
Correct. So 45 feet pitched, 35-foot flat. Okay.
So it seems to me that you're able to have cake without the calories.
I get what you're saying, like it needs to be under than the residential high, or what is it next?
It's right. It's like giving someone permission to have a gun, but no bullets. So I'm just a little, that's where I kind of want to see where all this fits. That's my question.
Yeah, that was my
Is,
thoughts
so
as
it was
well.
the same thing you were looking at, is if you get the benefit of no mixed use, then let's give up all the benefits of the mixed use. That's my question, how one might look at that or
Like,
make
if we
that
don't have
happen.
commercial, then it should be under the residential high.
I'm heading that way.
criteria.
It's still in the mixed use zone though.
Oh, okay,
And the
got it.
conditional use just allows
For
for
no
reduced commercial, but it doesn't take it out of the mixed use zone.
I
and
think you
those-
answered the question.
So,
It's
so
still
what's the
central.
geography? Is the mixed use zone only on that lot?
Well, it's on all of Outlaw E, which is across North 7th Avenue and this particular lot. But to the west of North 7th Avenue, all developed as residential as well, instead of mixed use, and they received conditional use permits.
And did they go to 45 feet?
I don't know what the height of those
I
buildings
don't
are.
think so either.
But-
Okay.
But they presumably could if they wanted to
Right,
redevelop.
they could.
Okay.
Wasn't the style back then. Oh, I had one other question, sorry. Does the parking on the street in that neighborhood, is it the same as like town center where you can't park after 2 AM or whatever it is? Okay.
But you can park on the street,
You can,
Not overnight.
not overnight.
but you can during the day.
Yeah.
It's of course 2 to 6 AM in that area usually.
Yeah, just, I think one question for staff. What was it about the metal roof that was the concern that we may or may not see that as compatible or compliant?
So we want to make sure that the metal is non-reflective and meets the color code.
Got it.
I do want to add that we received lots of public comment. It's all posted on the website. The ones that were received this week after the commissioners' packets went out, those are before you, and they were also sent to you via email. So.
I haven't seen questions about the metal roof, but I also have a question about, the applicant is now proposing a pathway along Seventh Avenue, which I think was in response to a lot of the comments that they got before about access along there. How would the town treat the maintenance of that pathway? Would that be the applicant's responsibility, or could the town be responsible for maintaining that pathway? Since it's along, I would assume that it's along a public in our.
The applicant, during the referral comments at major site plan, we'd want to know that. So it could be either, to be honest, it's how the applicant and the town public works come up with a solution of how. Lately, the town looks at it as they're usually willing to take on the maintenance if it meets their requirements and it's easy for them, like they can get their equipment on it. If it's not going to meet if it's not going to meet all of town requirements for width and things like that, then they won't have any part of maintaining.
Could we require that it meet the requirements so that it does get maintained? Because I feel like that's a big swing for me. If it's maintained through the winter and there's a pathway alongside the road, that seems to address a lot of concerns. But if it's covered in snow all winter, then it doesn't address those concerns. So
that recommendation, since you're at sketch plan, that the applicant work with Public Works prior to submitting the next round.
Perfect. Okay. That was my only question. Okay.
Have a presentation?
Yes.
That's online.
Danny, are you giving a
Yes.
presentation? Okay.
I am. Good evening, everybody. Dan Theodoro, Timberline Law, on behalf of the applicant. Seth Francis is online. Seth, say hello.
Hello, everyone. Yes, Chris, would you be able to give me access to share my screen?
Emma will do that right now. 1 minute.
Thank you.
He'll be doing the visuals on here for us, since I'm kind of computer illiterate anyhow. But what I'd like to just to start is I think there's some good questions and concerns raised, so I just want to address them. So I'll go kind of randomly. Andy, regarding the pathway, what we're proposing is that the pathway, and not just pathway, but we're also proposing to have lighting and illumination along that pathway. We heard about all the concerns, and I've seen now, you know, the kind of blind curve, and especially in the winter, there's a big snow pile right inside the blind curve and stuff like that. So we're proposing the HOA is maintaining the pathway and that lighting. Certainly we can sit down with town and figure all that out, but you know, that's absolutely something that we've thrown out there that we're proposing. The other thing we're proposing, and just to clarify for everybody, we had a open house for several hours last week and pretty well attended with folks in the neighborhood. We had a chance to talk through all these things. And so a lot of the stuff that I'll be talking about are reflective of concerns that they brought up. But in terms of that, we also said that, you know, we would offer to put up one of those mirrors on the blind curve, but it's on the town's property is the place where it would have to go so that you can see and the drivers can see and stuff like that. So, you know, it becomes a little bit less of a blind curve. So that's to address that one. To address, Ira, seems like you're on a caloric consideration tonight. So I heard the McDonald's comment before. I wouldn't necessarily say it's having the cake and eating it too. Really, the height is reflective of a whole lot more, especially you just consider the fact that flat roof's 35, pitch roof's 45 is considering a whole lot more than just commercial would be higher, right? A lot of times commercial is actually not higher. So it's really, there's a lot of considerations there. I understand where you're coming from, but you know, it's not like the height of the MU's zone district is really there just because there's commercial, right? So I just want to underscore that for you. But you know, we'll talk more about that in a bit. In terms of this neighborhood too. So I heard the discussion of like, well, everybody got a CUP. So the only people who got a CUP, if you look right across the street from this, I was there last week, so I had a chance to take a good look. There's a massive duplex, massive, zero articulation. It's a kind of Eastern European communist era kind of duplex. I hope the owner of the duplex isn't here, but that one was got a CUP. That was also remained MU. It's a little kind of outlot part of Lot E, and it was converted. We tried, we couldn't find the application for it. It was a long time ago, but that's what that is. The rest of the homes it really goes to, and we're going to go into a little bit of detail on the PUD because it's very, very relevant here. But the rest of the neighborhood is subject to the PUD zoning, which specifically took this whole area, which as far as we can surmise back in the late 80s into the early 90s was all MU. And it said, we're going to take this whole chunk, something like 7 acres of the property that was MU, and we're going to change it to residential. And we're going to change it to residential, but we're going to change it to residential with much smaller lots than the lots right behind it. So it's transitioning from the much larger lots, which are further to the, I always mess this up, north, and then smaller lots, and then leave this as MU. So it's all spelled out pretty specifically in the PUD, and we'll hit that for you as well here. So let's see. Other questions that we had. I can't read my own handwriting, so excuse me there. Got the maintenance, cake, PUD. I think that's everything. If there's anything else, please let me know. I'm sorry. I just got back from a trip. This is the only piece of paper I had. So let me just go through. So we heard you guys loud and clear. We appreciate you taking the time. Last time, this time, all the other times, I've only been here twice to my defense. But we heard you loud and clear and really went back and tried to really make the hard decisions about what we could do on this to lessen the density, to lessen, the potential impacts, to soften the feel of this, the bulk, the mass, everything else that we could do. And basically, really try to suck it up and went from essentially it was 20 units of density that included the two, deed restricted. We had a lot of conversation. What does deed restricted mean? It meant employee units, but still employees drive cars, employees, use electricity, et cetera, right? So we're from that 20 unit proposal, we're down to 11. Are they large? Sure. There's a fiscal reality to any development, but what we really try to do is not only limit the density, and by limiting the density, limiting the traffic, limiting the parking, all the other things, of course, but also kind of limit the massing and the impact of this by really breaking it up as much as possible. And we even got some good guidance just meeting with Chris a few weeks ago. It included townhomes. Now it doesn't even include townhomes. So it's 3 sets of duplexes, 1 triplex, and then the 2 single families. Sure, it's tight and everything like that. It's MU zoning, but we're trying to do as much as we can to limit there. So we're down to the 11. So if I could, and sticking on the McDonald's theme, and Seth, if you could just show, these are, and Chris brought this up too, but if you look, this is like a before and after McDonald's diet kind of thing to me. So if you look at, the visuals of where we were and where we are, that's conscientious that we tried to make it that way. And we got some really good guidance from staff on that, including Katie even gave us some visuals. It's like, not that, this. So is it tiny homes? Is it anything like that? Absolutely not. We recognize that, but we think we've certainly moved in the right direction, and that's what we're trying to do here. So Seth, if you could just keep rolling through all 4 of those. I don't know how well this is working, so if we don't do the visual, I'll just yeah.
I hear you.
Okay, all right. So we just go through all these little elements then really quickly. So we have the 40, essentially about a 40% reduction in density. Beyond that, Chris did a great job going through all the essentially fundamental site plan standards such as height, setbacks, open space, lot coverage, density. We're well below the lot of them now. Away from steep slopes, vehicular access, non-vehicular access, parking, bike parking, all those things. I will say that just broadly speaking, so we don't have to get into the minutia unless you'd like to, all the caveats that Chris threw out there of just making sure for site plan, these things are going to be expected. We absolutely understand from everything from roof design, which is, very important and technical, to things like the snow storage. I'll just address that really quickly. Since we have an HOA, we're going to put in the HOA that if you're using the guest parking, you have to move there. You could get towed if it's on maintenance, whatever. That's one effective way of dealing with it. The other one is that we can put some mitigation measures in that, area where there's, a little bit of closeness between the wetland setback and the snow storage area to make sure that it's not there. So we can mitigate that, and that'll all be specified in the site plan. The roof, whatever kind of metal we need, we'll use. So I'll leave that one up to you. I can't, that's out of my lane, so I won't speak to that too much. You know, we really tried to have a lot of building variation, everything else like that. Big conversation that we had a couple months ago was regarding the encroachment into the wetland setbacks. And for whatever misunderstanding we had there, no, we can't go in the wetland setbacks. No, we're not going to. So we are going to go in there to remove the existing structures that are actually in the wetland setbacks. So what we're going to do is be restoring and rehabilitating those wetland setbacks. And as well, anybody who's seen the site, you know, there's a little driveway off on the wetland side of it. We're going to take that driveway out, restore those wetlands as well. So there's a big aspect to that. We're actually doing a fair amount of restoration and going to have a better wetlands and wetland setback portfolio than we have right now. So as I said, we met with the neighbors at an open house last week. There was some good discussion, some very frank, honest discussion. We understand where they're coming from. Hopefully they understood where we're coming from. I do want to outline for you, because it's not necessarily in the application, but the things, you know, just for your consideration now, that we are going to do to enhance the project to address some of the concerns that we got from our open house. So we are proposing to put in a sidewalk and lighting along the road. That really came from the last meeting, and it just seemed like that was a really salient and effective thing to do. We're going to have, and this came from the open house, very large stop signs on the intersection of the internal drive with 7th Ave, and big stop painted on there as well, to make sure that there's, you know, proper flow of traffic and pedestrians and everything like that. We'll be happy to pay for a mirror at the curve on the road if the town allows it. It's on their property. We're restoring and rehabbing the wetlands and the wetland setback, as I noted. We're gonna put a fence as high as you guys will let us between the home that's directly adjacent to us on the
north side.
On the north side, thanks, Seth. And us, whatever height, you know, they asked for a 45-foot fence. I don't think you guys will let that, but you know, we'll get as high as we could. We're going to try to plant as much mature vegetation as we can and to minimize tree removal, and that's always been a goal, and that's something that absolutely we're going to try to do. Now, you know, it's going to be challenging, but that's something that we really want to do, and try to get as high of caliper trees in there when we do the re-veg. We're absolutely going to meet the shrubbery requirement. It just makes me think of Monty Python, but you know, we will meet that. And the last part of it too, and this came from a suggestion from staff, and we think it makes a lot of sense. We can't prohibit short-term rentals. The town's regs on that effectively do in a lot of ways, but what we're going to do is have a lot of significant restraints on short-term rentals. I think everybody should. I've represented tons of HOAs, and it's proven to be effective a whole bunch of times. I've done this a whole bunch of times for other HOAs where it's like, okay, parking, occupancy, all those things that you can do vis-a-vis an HOA that really restrict those external impacts that short-term rentals have on neighboring properties. That's something we've committed to do. You know, the rubber will hit the road. We're going to give you guys an opportunity to take a look at the declaration and all the other HOA materials, which will lay that out there pretty effectively. Water break. So next thing, just really quickly, I just wanted to talk about the community plan. I appreciate the discussion in the staff report regarding that. We would just note that if you look at page 68, and Seth, if you could just go to that picture again. So page 68 notes what we're wrestling with here and what we're all wrestling with here. And you know, it is always a challenge, but you know, it says on page 68, current zoning in many of Frisco's older neighborhoods allows for development at densities higher than what exists today. This means, for example, a property owner could tear down an existing home and build 2 or more new units in its place, for example. While densities vary by location, the graphics below illustrate how these changes might affect existing neighborhoods. So it's within the master plan that, you know, this is going to come down the pike. This is possibly going to happen. We realize that we're at the confluence of those things where, you know, a neighborhood was developed around this MU, and now we're trying to do as much as we can to develop within that neighborhood. We have different zoning. That's the other part of it too. So within the zoning that we have and what works, you know, there's the fiscal dictates of any development. So we're really trying to balance those. That's where a lot of that came from. So just to underscore that for you, that's kind of our notion. And if you look at the master plan too, it talks about things like transitions, which include stepping, mass, and breaking up bulk, right? Transitional in terms of feather and density away from less density to more density and all those other things. And so all on page 68 through 70 of the master plan, it really helped guide what we're trying to do here today. Really quick then, the zoning. So the zoning is actually PUD. And if we could go to the River Pines PUD, and, like a lot of PUDs in the 90s, it leaves a lot to be answered. PUDs seem to go from 7 pages to 97 pages over the course of the last few years. But one of the things that it does say is a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about, if you look at the PUD, you can see where it said, this is what we had. We had RU, and it even says, for example, the 34 single-family residences will be allowed. It notes the fact that the single-family residences will be smaller in size, so the residential lots will range from 5,000 to 8,753 square feet, where the town's normal requirement, at least at that point in time, was 10,500 square feet for a minimum single-family residence. That's in PUD Recital B. So it had a lot of that rationale of that transition. This is the structure that the PUD had. And why we feel this is really important, and we'll double back to it, is just this whole notion of compatibility. Because when we talk about compatibility, and even when we look at that second criterion from the CUP, which had that discussion of compatibility, if you look, it says compatibility, and it ties compatibility back into the PUD. The PUD itself, the criteria for approval of a PUD, discusses the notion of compatibility. Ergo, if a PUD is adopted, the whole notion is this mix of uses, this balance of I'm going to put this here, I'm going to put that there, which is kind of the standard way that a PUD goes about things, really reflects the notion of what, at least contemporaneously at that point in time, and what's adopted into the level of zoning dictate, right? It's a zoning ordinance, essentially, talks about what they felt was compatible. So at some point in time, the town, the developers all felt it was compatible to have the MU right by the single-family residences, which are much tighter single-family residences than the existing neighborhood, which was further to the north.
The north and west.
Anywho, that's essentially where that comes from. When we look at the PUD is the zoning. The zoning speaks to what we're doing, what we're trying to do. The zoning calls for MU zoning, and the PUD also specifically says in section 9 of the PUD that it lays out some very detailed standards and architectural standards for the single family homes. And it says this area, and Chris beat me to it, but it says this area is not subject to those standards. This area is not subject to the declaration. This area is subject to RU zoning, period. That's it. So when we look at RU zoning, and this is what we all wrestle with, Seth, if you could put up that figure 3M.
3M. This one?
Yes. So this is straight out of the town code. So that's figure 3M. And it says, it's entitled The Illustration of MU District Dimensional Standards. So if you look at that, that's kind of our during McDonald's phase of our proposal, right? So it's bulky, it's massive. This is just what the kind of contemplation is. So what we're really trying to do is whittle that down and work towards something that has less impacts, that blends in better without saying we can't be single family homes. We're not single family homes. And we have a few single family homes in there, but it's not quite the same as the other ones in the neighborhood. So that's what we're really trying to address here. So if you could put up that little vicinity picture, the aerial picture, Seth. So when we talk about immediate vicinity, there's no definition in the code for immediate. There's no definition in the code for vicinity. There's no definition in the code for immediate vicinity, neighborhood, anything. I try to grasp whatever I could, and it wasn't in there. So when we take a look at it, if you look at this big picture, and this came right from the staff report, you can see where a lot of the homes from a lot of the people that we met, a lot of people who have commented, their homes are actually closer to the Galena project. Their homes are actually closer to the Marina project. If you sit on the deck, so we were all sitting at the open house and having a conversation on this, and right out the window, you stare right at Marina Park. Is it Marina Park or Marina, whatever it is, the big monstrosity over there. So you can see it directly. So this is all really, when we talk about things, and they in the code, in the CUP part, it talks about that notion of context. So this is the context of everything we're trying to do. We're not trying to be Marina Park for sure. We're not able to be the residential neighborhood to the other side. So we're trying to be something that's something in between, something of a transition. And we understand where you guys were coming from before, because if you looked at our prior application, I'd say, yeah, we look a lot more like Marina Park than we do the other neighborhood. By breaking this down, by chopping this up, by having at least, visual corridors and all those other things, we feel we've really come a long way to do that. And we've done almost as much as we could do. We wanted to just lay out everything we could possibly do here rather than piecemeal this and kind of continue to play pin the tail on the donkey or mother may I. So, then again, here we are with compatibility. And I think Chris did a great job of underscoring the big part of that definition of compatibility. Again, she beat me to it, but it says compatibility does not mean the same. Rather, it refers to the sensitivity of development proposals, maintaining the character and context of existing development. That's really important. And when you look at some of the things, includes height, scale, mass, bulk, building materials, architecture, pedestrian and vehicular traffic, circulation, access, parking impacts. So we're really trying to address all those things. We even agreed that we're going to go back and take a look and see what we could do to try to figure out if there's some way to finagle more parking out of there. Really quick, just regarding the office issue, we totally understand that. We're either going to turn that thing into an absolute office or find parking, right? But we get that part of it. I don't think that's really up for debate. We understand where staff's coming from on that completely. So, so here we are. And obviously, if this is a site plan, we just went through one, right? And I heard a lot of the commissioners say, well, the code says what the code says, right? This gives us an opportunity to have this discussion. What the CUP process has done has certainly enabled us to come in and force us to, right? Squeeze us down to come in with something that's going to be a lot better and a lot more compatible, so to speak, within that whole notion of there's this overarching pallor of the use by right. And, we're never going to have a McDonald's in there, just so everybody's on the same page. But, the whole notion of what can we do better than what we have? And I really think that's the whole notion here, right? Because at one point in time, commercial of any kind was a real consideration in a lot of these areas, and we were trying to get it in. Now, commercial is a challenge. We talked about that last time, right? It's a challenge not only from the fact of what kind of commercial works and what kind of commercial doesn't. A lot of people build office space. Nobody goes to the office anymore, right? So there is some commercial that works too, but then commercial being such a nebulous term, what goes in there that really works? A bank, great. Fast food restaurant, not so great, right? We saw this in operation today, and I understand the concerns from both sides on that, right? So from where we are, we just really want to hear if this isn't compatible, if this isn't viable, we need to know what is and what's not, because the one thing is we can't keep architects and lawyers are both apparently pretty expensive from what I've heard, from what Seth tells me. So we can't keep trying to approximate and stuff like that. So we'll do whatever we can. And I really quick, really important, Chris noted that we didn't address that last criterion regarding conditions. We're fine. We're not going to propose conditions because we don't know, but there are certainly other things we can do. All these things that we threw out here, we'll commit to conditions for them and stuff like that. But within the fine tuning, we have a lot of fine tuning to do. That's the beauty of a sketch plan versus a site plan, right? But in terms of what we can do, what's compatible, we've just run down to the brass tacks, where if we do any more, we are actually at a point where, and this is neither sour grapes, nor is this any sort of ultimatum or anything like that. It's just, you come to a certain point in time when you sit down from the developer side of it and you say, so are we at a point where we're back to, is it more viable to do this project with 20% commercial and not have all these, bells and whistles and stuff like that, right? And then you have to have those conversations that we saw today. We don't want to go there. We want to have something that everybody feels good about. We made that clear to the neighborhood. We're making it clear to you guys. We're committed to working through whatever fine tuning we need to do. But we hope that we could get some really good guidance today. We've gotten some good guidance from you before. We hope we could get some support for this and, get us in the right direction and have a project we could all be proud of at the end. That's all I have for now. unless there's questions or concerns, or if I can read the rest of the things on my paper. So.
Right. So we'll open it up for questions for the applicant. Jessica, do you want to start? Do you have any questions for?
Danny, when you were talking about limitations on short-term rentals in the CCNRs, were you considering a limitation on number of nights?
Number of nights, occupancy, number of people, right? Is always a big
What
one.
was your consideration? Number of minimum rental stay?
Oh, I don't know yet. I'll probably ask you.
I just was
I'll
gonna
probably
say
ask.
it's a really, really effective way to
Right.
limit short-term rentals and like the come and go and the cleaning coming in and out, the hot.
Are you saying like a
coming in and out.
minimum number of nights and stuff
Yes,
like that? Yeah.
Like a 7-night minimum, 4-night minimum, but like if you don't do at least a 4-night minimum, you'll have that weekend in and out.
Yeah.
Just
And so,
saying.
and
So-
to give you an example.
Or even
so
more than 4 nights.
I've had multiple associations that I've worked with, right? Where they went from, we want to eliminate it completely. And other people were like, that's, my God-given right, right? And one of the ways that we've done it is like really putting those restraints on, like, okay, here's X amount of nights per year you can rent, short-term rent it. Here's the parking things. Here's what happens if there's any problems, right? Now you're accountable to the HOA. Those of you that don't live in HOAs, it's not the funnest thing to be accountable to an HOA. So that's the stuff.
Ability and effectivity standpoint, if you do like a minimum rental night stay is
Yeah.
really the most effective
And,
way.
and I promise you, we'll have all of that in the declaration for everybody to review so that it's not just, illusory in terms of our representations or commitments there.
Okay, and then I'm sure, you're proposing the pathway, talking about lighting the pathway. I doubt you're to the point where you're actually proposing lighting fixtures, but when we get to that next.
No, we are.
On that pathway?
Yeah.
Okay,
Don't ask me what kind. I love it.
okay, yeah, I'm not
Pretty
gonna
well.
look at them right now, but yeah, I would just say whatever the absolute like minimum to provide safety would be there.
Yeah, so I think we're required to be, or, we're committed to be dark sky compliant. And, we had a lot of good conversations with the neighboring properties on that as well. Ensuring that there's not glare or light impacts on other properties. And so, we'll have all that, spelled out.
I don't think I have any other questions for Danny. Thank you.
All right.
The units, how many bedrooms did you say was as little as 2 bedrooms, as many as?
So it goes from some units have 3 bedrooms. Most have 4. There's one with 6. There's one with 7, but it's too many. I'm actually gonna remove one of those. So it'd be from 3 bedrooms to 6 bedrooms.
So I mean, I guess you're marketing, you're on your own, but it sounds like you have a pretty wide spread in the marketing
Yeah.
price point.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Kelsey?
No questions, just comments.
I can't figure out where the path is. Can you help me?
Sure, I could pull it up here. So I'll kind of zoom in here. I know this is not the site plan, but the path will run along North 7th Avenue. The problem is it kind of dead ends right here where the property ends. The bike path is over here. The bike path is over here, sorry. But if the town will allow it, happy to continue that path. To the bike
That
path.
would be our ideal, is to continue the path right to there, because if you get to the other side of the property, and again, the neighbors on the other side, be tough for them. That's their front yard essentially. But, see, it's a cul-de-sac, and the other part of the bike path is right. Do we have that there?
It's just at the end of the cul-de-sac.
At the end of that cul-de-sac, right? So it essentially creates a corridor for this entire area by having that part taken care of. And that would be our hope. Again, if the town lets us, we'll put up a mirror, we'll put a little pathway, we'll even give them a light.
Yeah, there's a bike path sign right here, kind of where this car is parked. I think it would be a great place for a mirror if we could put it on top of that post. Another neighbor who has a young child and the neighbors also asked about a speed bump. I actually reached out to Chris McGinnis last week it's not, obviously it's the town right of way. I just, curious about what would be the process to add something like that to help, reduce speed.
And Seth, if you could just show the area where the snow berm usually ends up being. And so the whole notion is if you have the pathway on this side and everything's oriented to that side, it'll really help safety as well, because the blind spot is right on that corner over there in the winter when there's like huge snow berm that's built up just from plowing.
Galena gonna be lessened when the Galena project is done?
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
Where they're straightening the road there.
Yeah.
It's a nice shape to do it.
My next question is it looks like the elevation is higher than existing ground, just from the renderings. What's driving the elevation?
Seth. Well, here's what I'll say. So in terms of some of the elevation concerns, so we originally were exploring the notion of being able to have subterranean parking. And I think this was discussed at prior hearings, but we're in a flood zone or water table, so we can't go down any further in terms of parking. So the first level of every structure is essentially where the parking is, right? So that kind of forces things up a little bit. The other part is by having, if you look, so when we say 45 feet, and obviously, and we're not seeking to go over 45 feet or anything like that, there's some gray matter right now with the roofs, but we have to meet code, and we understand that, and Chris laid that out for us. But if you look, so it's that high point that's 45 feet. It's just those apexes of the slanted roofs. So that helps with roof articulation. It helps with breaking it up. It helps with mass. It helps with bulk and everything. So that's another part of the height aspect, is that it's at the highest point of those roofs, and then it works its way down from there. So there are other parts where it's much lower.
And it goes from like around 38 feet to 44 feet. And that's just those precipices of those sloped roofs. So you could see, the lower part, this is a lot lower than 45.
Okay. Yeah, I guess my main question is like on page, it's the PDF page 29 with the colored pictures. It just looks like there's green steps up to the building in every aspect view. And particularly, I'm thinking if you're the neighbor and the building is 45 feet, but if the ground is 10 feet higher than their lot, then
I feel like that's an architectural thing they do.
It'll be measured from the existing grade, the 45
the
feet.
existing.
So even
Yeah.
if they pile dirt up against it, that won't be where the measurement for the 45 feet starts. It
Okay.
starts from what's out there right now.
so
And
even though
we-
it has these green steps.
And we are
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
we are piling, we are trying
It's just a
to
CAD programming thing.
we are trying to increase
But you'll
finished
have that.
grade in a lot of areas to make it look less like a four-story structure. So you
Like
can
more aesthetics, but we can't manipulate grade in terms of height, right? And so that's but you did bring up a big question, a big point too, in terms of stepping. I don't know, Seth, if you have that picture or not. So what we've done here, especially from 7th Ave, is it's significantly stepped away from the setback and away from the right of way. That's where most of the stepping is, but as you can see in some of the pictures, the higher points are way in compared to the beginning of the building and the setback and everything, because we've definitely stepped it away, which is again from the master plan and everything like that. So
Okay, thank you. And then my final question is just, it sounds like you met with the neighbors, which is awesome. I think that shows like a lot of goodwill. You mentioned some takeaways and some minor improvements. Did you feel like you got to a point where the neighbors were on board?
So I think we had a very good, healthy conversation, right? I don't want to speak for them, but I think a lot of them, it was like, we were very honest about, this is why we're doing this. This is what we can do. These are the things we can't do, right? And this is what the zoning says. I actually walked through the PUD with multiple people who didn't even know the PUD was there, and they thought everything was zone single family. So we went through all those steps. We try to address what their concerns were, certainly the road and everything like that. And just how we're trying to design this to minimize the impact. And so I think we left at a really positive point, I understand it. And I told everybody there, I had an empty lot next to my house on Peak 7 for 25 years. And a couple of years ago, I woke up and I'm like, oops, where did that come from? So I absolutely understand how it feels intrinsically for people, right? And so we're trying to be just very upfront about that, you know, we can't just make it part of the neighborhood. We can't, right? But we're trying to do as much as we can to bring it in, to minimize those impacts, to blend it in, and to make it less than the marina, less than any of the other stuff over here. But, you know, certainly that transition, so.
Thanks.
And we met with them for like 2 hours, so.
I don't know really if this is a question for you or you guys, but the way the driveway is set up, was there like a turn radius study done? I didn't see anything in the documentation. Like, can you get a Yukon into there and
Yeah.
actually turn it?
Yeah, so
Get
we
into a
had all
garage?
code on top of that. They did a design to make sure that, you know, it's viable and feasible for everybody to turn, and, you know, so the whole notion would be back out of the garage and then go.
And then what's the HOA stance on people parking like in front of garages and stuff like that? Is that going to be allowed?
So I think, you know, that's one of the things that we talked about, and that could be something that's viable, right? In terms of something, obviously, we're not going to be able to attribute that to our parking count. But in terms of if there's somebody there visiting or whatever, that's something that can be really viable, especially when you have, you know, a 2-car garage. And we actually talked about that with the neighborhood as well. And that's something that, you know, we're not going to prohibit. We don't think it makes sense to prohibit it, right? You know, the reality is, in a lot of Summit County, in a lot of areas where you have tight parking and all the other things, right? A lot of times it may be inconvenient to get up, move your car, put it back and stuff like that, so.
I don't have any questions. Okay.
I'll be over here in case you guys need me, so.
Stan. Okay. We're gonna open it up to public comment. Anyone in the room that would like to make public comment on this project, please step to the microphone, state your name and address. And if you can, keep it to 3 minutes or less. Katie's got a buzzer.
Figured out and it ended up going out.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I'll try to pay attention.
Hi, my name is Mary Waldman. I have lived in 261 North 6th Avenue, River Pines for almost 20 years. My husband and I own a vacation rental business in Frisco, and we have been a full-time resident in Frisco since 2002. We have no objections to a private property owner investing in new developments. We simply ask that it follows the Frisco Community Plan to preserve neighborhood character and safety. The neighborhood is now a home to 2 families with young kids riding bikes and walking their dogs, not to mention hundreds of walkers accessing our lovely Walter Byron Park. As you review the applicant, please consider the impact of 602 Galena housing just few steps away from this development. River Pines currently have 34 homes. Between the 602 Galena workforce housing and the 200 North 7th, we will now have over 100 total homes within the next 18 months. That's a lot of new homes being added to in a very short amount of time. Not enough time to gradually digest its potential impact to our daily livelihood. You have received many River Pine homeowners' comments in your packet since the open house. I believe there are valid concerns to be discerned by the commissioners. I sincerely asked the town engineer to add a 4-way stop at 6th and Main. It takes patience to get out of our neighborhoods today. With 3 times more homes, traffic will increase. It seems to make sense to put a stop sign at this intersection, just like the 4th. Sometimes I drive over to the 4th Avenue to get out and make a left turn. I do vacation rentals for a living, and I strongly oppose government restrictions on short-term rentals. I believe that it should be up to the individual homeowners and the HOAs or the PUDs. I fully support the HOAs to restrict their own premise as long as the homeowners all vote for it. I do have parking concerns because I deal with this on a day-to-day basis. Most of these homes will be purchased by second homeowners, and some of them will apply for short-term rental license. Tracking the new 9097 flats development with listing agents, about half of the buyers are planning to rent. For the 6-bedroom home, the allowed maximum occupancy is 16 people for guests. For the 4 5-bedroom homes, 14 is the max occupancy. When rented, it will draw multiple families to share these lovely homes. Each of these large homes are only required to have 4 parking spots, half of which are tandem, which is very inconvenient. Parking demand will inevitably overflow to planned Galena Street parking and potentially to a 6th and 7th Avenue street parking without sidewalks. I asked the planning commissioners to proceed cautiously now to avoid unintended traffic and parking challenges down the road. Thank you.
Anyone else in the chamber that would like to speak? Okay, and I see some hands raised online. Shall we start with Brian?
Yep, perfect. Thank you so much. So we submitted a letter. My name is Brian Koldyke. We live in the massive duplex across the street. I won't repeat any of the points presented in the letter, but I do just want to, since it was brought up, provide a comparison. There are 3 floors, so a garage and 2 living floors in the duplex across the street with an approximate height of below 35 feet. And so just from a comparison perspective, with this 45 feet pitch, and the pitch is not very significant, you do have that 4th story of living across the street. And to the question that was raised earlier, it is on a grade that's approximately 4 to 5 feet above the street level currently. So it would, it would sit at its natural elevation. And I can appreciate the comments that were made around grade, but it would sit about 50 feet above street level versus considering where the building would begin at its current grade. And so that would be approximately 12 to 15 feet above the largest other structure in this neighborhood. And just, to the point about it being out of character. And so I appreciate the opportunity to submit previous points in the letter that we did last week. And so I won't belabor them here. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Looks like Cindy is up next. Cindy, do you want to unmute yourself and speak to this project?
Sorry about that. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. Upon reviewing, I'm Cindy Sale, by the way. My husband Paul and I own the home at 360 North 7th Avenue. Upon review of the new application, our overall opinion is that this is still squeezing as many large buildings as possible with too much density into the available building space on the parcel. The applicant states in the project narrative, the sale price of the property was contemplated of a more dense development. What the developer contemplated purchasing the property shouldn't matter to the town of Frisco or the River Pine homeowners. What should matter is what makes sense and is reasonable to be compatible with the existing adjacent residential neighborhood. The application narrative includes statements regarding a reduction in the overall density by 42% from the previous application, based on reducing the number of units from 19 to 11. This is very deceptive because all the units in the new application are much larger in square footage. There are more overall bedrooms, which was at 45, but now Seth said they're going to bring that down to 44, where the last proposal, there were 43 bedrooms. The overall finished space has been listed as only being reduced by 1,200 square feet. This is only a 3.5% reduction in density. There is a reduction of nearly 11,000 square feet in the unfinished space. This is apparently related to the overall reduction in the parking area, basic storage, and bicycle storage. It is unlikely that the proposed tandem parking layout will be fully utilized for vehicles as depicted. due to the reduction of space allowed for storage of recreational items that are typical for living in Summit County. Sufficient parking has been a stated concern by many homeowners previously, and this new proposal has even less parking spaces, a total of 44 where it was 55 before. With absolutely no allowance or space for parking on the street, where will the overflow parking go? We also believe that for a CUP, whatever is built on the parcel should be compatible with the existing neighborhood as outlined in the Frisco Community Plan. We've already talked about Principle 1.1. Ensure new housing complements adjacent properties and neighborhoods through appropriate mass, scale, and design. On page 68 of the design principle with the transitions, where infill or redevelopment is on a different scale or height than surrounding buildings, transition should be provided to limit impacts on adjacent properties. And here I think we're specifically talking about the residents at 300 North 7th Avenue. I'm not sure if a fence is going to be really sufficient for them. In conclusion, our opinion is that this project application still falls short of being in compliance relative to the community plan principles. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Sandy. Looks like Jen is up next.
Thanks for giving me the time to speak. My name is Jennifer Poitras. I own the home at 321 North 7th Avenue, which is right next to the duplex, which is across from the proposed development. I've owned this home since 2013 and would like to express my deep concern with the proposed development at 200 North 7th Ave. I and many of my neighbors feel the project is excessively large for the location and would have a huge negative impact on the neighborhood, and very concerned about the fact that this neighborhood is on a cul-de-sac. Even currently, there is excessive traffic that goes around the cul-de-sac, often very, very fast, well over a speed limit. And of course, that neighbors right on where the bike path is or the multi-use path. So traffic on the cul-de-sac itself is all the way around is going to be affected. So I don't think everybody's going to be just turning into the property itself at the bottom of North 7th and leaving. I think there's going to be a lot more traffic going through the cul-de-sac, which is a safety concern for everybody. And one of the biggest concerns, I know safety's been talked about a lot with that blind corner at the bottom of North 7th. But one of the biggest concerns, which has already been addressed, but I think it's worth mentioning again, is the proposed 4 visitor parking spots. And it is truly woefully insufficient for a project development this size. The existing parking on the street is already very limited with the current number of homes that are there. I've seen times where even just a couple of the homes on the cul-de-sac or on that street will have a dinner party, and it will take up effectively all of the parking that's available. I have literally had times when people have parked on my property because there's nowhere else to park. It's a concern once the property is fully developed and the units are sold and lived in. It's certainly also a concern during the build process. I don't, where all the construction people will be parking is a big question because there won't be able to, well, it's a concern. And I'm a real estate professional and certainly concerned about the value of my home and the value of my neighbors' homes in the neighborhood. And I certainly understand and appreciate that some type of development is going to happen on this property. I would just hope that those of you who are in the position to have the authority to make decisions about what type of property that is, would please try to do something that is not built that's going to be to the detriment of myself, my neighbors, and the neighborhood. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jennifer. Looks like Scott, you're up next. Do you want to?
Yep. Sorry about that, just trying to get this over here. So first and foremost, I want to echo what Jen said. We completely understand that there is going to be development. So we respectfully ask the town council to listen to the concerns of the people that have been living here for many years. We are at 300 North 7th Avenue, affectionately referred to as the neighbors multiple times here. So it's a house directly adjacent to this, to the build right now. The ask that we have is, as Cindy stated earlier, it's in the governing body for the character and livability of the Frisco residential neighborhood. And it's to ensure that the housing complements the adjacent properties through the appropriate mass, height, scale, and design. I think as you guys have all heard, we 100% do not believe that the new build, while better, still meets this requirement. So we have a 2-story house, and I didn't have the time to measure it. The new proposed one is 4 stories. We did go and went and measured the one across the street, which was about 35 foot. So as he mentioned, above grade, we're now closer to 50 feet. So it's doubling the size height of the current house that we're at. What we read before is we have a lovely view of these aspens right here. When we were at the open house, and we do appreciate that they had it, those aspens, we were told at the open house, would be removed, the berm would be removed, and the house, or this new structures, would be built where those aspens are. 13 feet from the property line. So we're going to go 13 feet from our property line, and then roughly 45 to 50 feet, doubling the height of our house in the air. It's, in my mind, just an unbelievable shift, and there's no way that it falls in line with the livability to keep this the way we have it. We respectfully ask that we have a redesign to a similar mass, height, bulk, and this new design building to match the character of the Frisco community neighborhood. My wife was the one who asked for the 45-foot house fence in jest. We know that that is not doable, but there has to be something. The aspens were a beautiful aspect of this, and to remove them in place of and have it replaced with a 45-foot structure 100% does not align with livability. And to reiterate what Jen just stated, we would seriously reconsider, would we have purchase that house? It is a wonderful, quiet neighborhood that will change drastically with just this building, and adding in the Galena Street build. Now we're going to triple the amount of homes and neighborhoods in here. So with that, thank you very much. I appreciate the time. Please just consider the families that we have here living currently.
Thank you, Scott. Doesn't look like there's anyone else with their hand raised online. Is that what I'm seeing? Okay, and no one else in chambers? So we will close the public comment portion of this item and move on to commissioner comments. Again, this is just sketch plans, so we're not voting on anything tonight. We'll just be providing feedback to the applicant.
Andy, can I make a clarifying comment about the grade elevation now?
Seth.
Yeah.
Sure. Go ahead, Seth.
Yeah. So the building actually has been dropped to street level. So there were a couple comments about it being at its current elevation, the slab. We're actually dropping it to that street level, so it won't be 50 feet above the street.
So you're saying that it'll top out 45 feet above street level?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification, Seth.
Sure.
That's helpful. Okay. April, do you want to start with comments? Or you can pass if you want, since I made you start last time.
Yeah, this is a really tough situation. I think the look and feel of the building itself has greatly improved from what we saw from the first couple of meetings, looking on a big box that we were looking at. It's still big. It's still, is pushing, I think, the limits of the neighborhood character. But I feel like considering the amount of land that they have to work with the wetlands there, I don't know what other options you would have at this point to make it any different. But yeah, I definitely hear all the concerns of the neighbors, and I'm kind of torn on this one, honestly, on how I feel. I have to say.
Candace?
I just think of the existing building there. That's a very big building, and you really can't see it from anywhere. You can't see it from the highway. You can't see it from 7. I mean, it's also not really been used, but I think it is a different use in that area, but it is tucked into a neighborhood in a way that it doesn't change the neighborhood character in the existing condition. I think what's being proposed, while I agree it's better, and I think there's been a lot of progress, and I definitely appreciate and acknowledge that you guys worked with the neighborhood and you worked with the town, and like, I definitely think it's getting better. I just still have a hard time feeling like it fits this area. I think if the lot was flopped where the wetlands were near the houses, this would be a no-brainer. But because you're building a 45-foot tall building next to a 25 or 2-story home that's 13 feet away, I think that whoever made the public comment and drew their pictures, whether it's to scale or not, I think it's pretty telling of when you look out your window, it just doesn't feel like the same neighborhood character. And I think to Katie's point earlier, like, we have to stay within the bounds of what we can. And this is one that is hard because we can give you opinions, because it is subjective a little bit. So I think it's really hard to go from what's there to what's proposed. I think 42,000 square foot of residential addition is still, it just still feels like a lot to me, but yeah, that's how I live there.
I want to thank you for taking this and continuing to chew on it and not just dangling the ultimatums in our face, because I don't think that is good for our community. And we're running out of land, and you got to be creative on what's left. And I want to kind of just like pound my head into like the table, because when the PUD was created, I don't think the owner who owned this and built the lodge thought about that when he was digging the trench that made the wetlands. I mean, these were man-made wetlands, and I'm kind of like, is there no way to move the wetlands and make this project work? Like, I feel like we're just finding no versus yes on a man-made wetland, which I'm like, I really think, I know that that's glamorous and it involves a Army Corps of Engineers, but like, to continue to push in something on a hard land, that I'm like, could we do something cool and relocate this across the street to get a product that isn't forced in on the remaining parcels in here? That is like, yes, you've come a long way, but it also looks to me like you just went and it doesn't have a lot of articulation in the building design. And I think you've come so far. I'm just like, is there creativity here to make a great project versus a forced project? And is it even possible to just move the wetlands to the other side of the parcel and put this towards Marina Park where it is more compatible? Because I do feel that this is an opportunity to step into the, yes, it's not going to be a single family home there, folks. I just don't think so. And it is a struggle. I was born and raised here. It doesn't look anything like what it looked like in the 90s. And there were good projects, there were bad projects, but now we're getting forced projects. And I just feel like it's still a little too forced. And I think there's creativity here. I don't know how. I'm not the attorney. But it feels forced. But I appreciate where you've come. And my final note will be, I don't think this is a place for commercial at all. The bedroom count seems like there's not a lot of 8-bedroom single-family homes or 6-bedroom duplexes. So it feels like we're still trying to get the numbers to work. And then we're going to have the parking problem, like Mary said. I don't feel like the tandem works. I think we're getting closer, though.
Thanks, Kelsey.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the applicant's been doing a lot of work. I mean, I remember the one I saw, the one was the Glades, which looked like it was from the 70s. I mean, so I'm glad we've moved away from the Glades, but
I think it's still called that, though.
I think it's still called that, yeah.
But that first building.
So the first building was, I don't know, and that was, well, anyway. So, I mean, in the living of a project, I think one of the things that our statistics show is how many of our own properties are full-time occupants. And I don't think that there'll ever be a day when that property is fully occupied by all the owners. I mean, that's a guess, but I think there's statistics that tell us here that it's just not going to be fully occupied. So that's part of my appreciation for your density, that it would work. Where I still have trouble is the guest parking, how much parking. I think parking is an issue. I'm very grateful that you're looking to add sidewalk, maybe even lighted sidewalk, a convex mirror. I mean, all that goes towards safety. I'm very encouraged that you had a meeting with the neighborhood and you're still here and they didn't shoot you. I mean, so.
We'd let you know.
Yeah. So, and the other part of building housing is that people occupy it. And I think I've said this before, that sometimes the neighbors who are in such opposition might all of a sudden have one of their best friends move in next door, a new friend. And that's what housing is about, is creating community. And the building, this brick and mortar doesn't create the community. It's the people. And so I think you've done a nice job moving your buildings along, making them breaking them up some. I don't think, as far as the architecture being duplicating itself, I think your project clearly doesn't duplicate it. It's thematic to itself. It has architectural elements within the project that repeat themselves, but that only makes it a unified project. It doesn't make you having, duplicative architecture. So I think parking remains an issue, and the one architectural thing is, it is a little bit tough to swallow the one neighbor who's someone's got to be right next door to it. It would be nice if we could move the wetlands. I don't know if that's happening.
I'm good. Magic.
Yeah.
Magic out there.
But so that would be the only that would be one of my architecture problems, is 300, but that's the address next door, right? That transition, parking in that transition. Otherwise, I'm going to pass the torch.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't have a ton new to add. I really think you got a lot closer. I'd almost say you're like 80% of the way there, and this is just a sketch plan. So you can, I think, get all the way there, hopefully, on this next iteration. Yeah, Ira and I think Candace brought up, and this shade study that this person did. I would love to see you guys come in with a sun angle study for this person at 300 North 7th. On this public comment, they sort of were saying, this is how much of our house will be in the shade. Why don't you guys bring that in at the next time we see this? Because can't make neighborhood compatibility if you're putting your neighbor entirely in the shade all winter, but maybe you're not, I don't know. So yeah, I would love to see some of just the mass and the scale of this drop down. It is not going to work having people just park in front of their garages. You're going to have fire lane issues. You're going to have snow clearing issue. Like, that is not your solution. Your solution is to drop the scale of this building and drop the number of bedrooms and have a parking plan that actually works. Or you're just going to create a whole issue for the people that are going to buy and live and rent there. I'll reiterate what I said about short-term rental regulations that you're gonna put into your HOA covenants. As clear and enforceable and simple as you can make them is what's gonna be effective. And I've really learned that that nightly minimum is really what kind of drops that high, that traffic, that turn and burn, all those things, and gets a different type of renter into the place. Yeah, I think when you look at some of the parking issues, you'll look to address some of the snow storage issues. But as tight as this site is right now, these 4 visitor spaces that are blocking the snow storage, knowing that we're already going to have some parking and potential other snow storage issues, it's just, I don't see this as the final parking design that's going to work best. Yeah, I don't think I have too much more to add. I thank you guys for keeping on this, and I know how much, I don't know how much money it is, but I imagine it is a ton that has already happened. So Seth, thank you for keeping working with us. Danny, thank you for the presentation. And I think you guys, I hope you'll get there.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't want to repeat too much of what's already been said. I love the idea of moving the wetlands, but I also have tried that before.
But do you think anybody would be mad? I think they'd be like,
No,
okay,
I-
so people anymore. I think
We've seen over on 4th Avenue what can be done in the wetlands. So if somebody gets creative. So yeah, that sounds great. But I just want to thank you guys for all the work that you've done on this. It really is 1,000 times better than the first project we saw. And I think it was really brought up well tonight, Chris and Danny, about this is a transition. We're not trying to match the residential neighborhood next door. And I think this project really starts to now look more like a transitional project to me. Before, even the very last iteration looked like Marina Park to me. This is starting to look a lot more like a transition to me. I think I'm definitely in favor. Let's see if we can get a stop sign at 6th and Main. I think that would be great. If that helps out, I would be supportive of that. Not that anybody cares what we think about that, but I would support that. I think that's a great idea. As far as some of the things we were asked to look at, obviously you're going to have to meet snow storage, functional snow storage. The metal roof, yeah, maybe make it a little bit darker. It sounds like you're going to fix the office and the bedroom. The height limits, you're obviously going to be looking at that really close. So you got to nail that and make it really clear. Parking, to get back to one of the sticky issues, I do think, it's been brought up a few times tonight that the bedroom count didn't go down, but I also think in a 3-bedroom house, you very often will have 3 cars show up. In a 6-bedroom house, you're probably not thinking about 6 cars showing up. And so I do think that you have reduced the parking demand by consolidating the bedrooms. And I think you're much closer to getting that to work. The 4 visitor spots, we got to change the code if we don't like 4 visitor spots, because that's what our code says. And same thing with the tandem parking, and the same thing with the number of spots, 4 spots for a 6-bedroom. Again, I think there's a reason that we stop at 4 spots, because you rarely are going to see 6 cars for a 6-bedroom house. So I do think that you've made changes that are going to make the parking more functional. Are you going to have issues? Yeah. So the neighbor's going to at some point have to call to get a car towed, likely, but that's at their disposal. If somebody's parked illegally overnight, get the car towed. It's not supposed to be there. That's at your disposal. As far as the shadow studies, I'd love to see it. But again, they're meeting all the zoning for this. And if it had commercial in it, we wouldn't even get to have any say in that. And they'd get to just go to 45. They're right up against it. None of us want to see commercial in there. So to me, it feels strange to impose additional restrictions when we agree that there shouldn't be commercial on this site. But if they had commercial, then we wouldn't even get that say. So to me, you guys are much closer. Now, I might be in the minority on this commission right now in terms of thinking you're closer than some of the others, but I do think you're really close. And I'd like to see, I want to see the 7th Avenue path really clarified in the drawings and working with town engineer to figure out exactly what that looks like and how it's maintained. To me, that's a critical component of this project because, you know, we didn't hear as much about it tonight, but people walking on that street was a big concern at the last few meetings. And if we can handle that, that was a big concern of mine too. So I'd love to see some connectivity past the site. But yeah, I think you're close. You're really close, in my opinion.
I do.
So
Especially if you flip flop.
yeah, if you just flip
Yes.
flop it, if we can just, you know, do the siphon from one side of the site to the other.
We'll call the Army Corps. If they don't answer, you let us flip flop it.
It just happened. I don't know.
It just shifted.
Come back.
Dig a big hole on one side of the site, the wetlands will move.
Right?
No, I think that you're close and I don't think we have any other comments. Anyone else? So we're gonna close the item.
On behalf of Seth too, want to thank you guys for sticking with us through this whole thing. You know, this is several iterations and you know, we appreciate it and good feedback. And so we'll take it back in Palo and we'll see us again.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
So with that, we'll.
Well, unless next week there will not be many people in community development for the school vacation week. So if you're outreaching to people on your own projects or hear people complain, we're definitely short-staffed. So many of us are headed out of town, including tonight, some of them. So thanks, Amy. Then my only comment update is we will have a planning commission meeting on the next one, which is Thursday, May 1st. We are mixing it up a little bit. We are going to start with a 4 p.m. site visit, if you can make it, to Prospectors Marketplace and take a tour. We're not really going to discuss the screening and mechanical equipment on site, but we're going to just go. He wants to give a tour of the building. It's pretty neat. I had one last week when I ran into him on the sidewalk.
Who's leading that tour?
Okay. You can stop by and give you one.
Another tour?
Yes, he wants to give everybody a tour. And so that will be on site at 4 p.m. And then Gene Gregory, who's the contractor, it will lead us there, or we'll meet there though. Then we're gonna have a regular meeting at 5 o'clock. The only item on the agenda is going to be to discuss the screening for mechanical equipment. We're not going to talk about it right now, but essentially he has so many ideas and he's afraid whatever he submits is going to be so obtrusive. He kind of just wants to brainstorm and have a nice conversation with the planning commission and then submit a formal application. So site visit at 4 o'clock will remind you a little bit different than normal. And then 5 o'clock meeting here for work session discussion. That's it for next meetings. I know that's almost what I was about.
Awesome.
Still my husband.
Any other questions for staff?
Yeah. I have one comment. I don't know if this is on your radar, but I just feel like we're seeing a lot of tandem parking. And that, like, I think
We all know
my
it sucks.
common sense, it just changes the calculations of needs. And I feel like our code just says, it's fine.
I think we need parking overhauled, like to solve the problems we're seeing.
But the tandem spot rules that we have to agree to are kind of strange. They're not really about functionality. They're about, could somebody use it for storage or, so yeah, I would support revisiting those and trying to make sure that functionality is worked into that.
I think on paper, it looks like you could put 2 cars in there, but in reality, it's not. It doesn't function the same. So.
Sounds good.
Motion to your long list.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Just sir.
Let me just create your name so I don't
The
forget.
minimum night is definitely
I'll forget in a second.
less traffic.
Yeah, it's like, it's not just the people, which is one thing, they get there.
Because I was like. Unless they email us and say, take us off.
Yeah.
Even though nobody's even, they might.
Right. But I was like,
Yeah. As a real estate.
Right. I said you have a lot. No way.
No.
No.
Not a lot about short-term rental regulations.
You want to be.
In our.
Well done.
And then I ask who would be
Who would
take
do
the
it?
lead.
Yeah, okay. Solid sharing of a long.
I really.
This will be the one that she doesn't show up for, isn't it?
It's like seeing like vertical version.
I had no idea.
Yeah, well, I thought they were all here for the second part.
Yeah.
And Mary, I know Mary personally.